Jackson on a design run. Touchdown! I-N-D-Y.
This is the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, and Jeff.
Hump day. Let's go. Wednesday. We move closer and closer to the NFL draft. We move closer and closer to the Pacers playing their first playoff game. We had play-in games last night. Trae Young gets thrown out of the game. Afterwards, referee calls him for making a mockery of the game. Steph Curry does his thing again. Ja Morant and the Grizzlies have a 5-second violation at the very end of regulation that cost them a chance to win. It's just the week of sports continues, KB. Everything is rolling.
Yeah, I don't know if I can compare playing game to what we witnessed Sunday at Augusta National, but nonetheless, that's what we're handed to on a Tuesday night.
It was great drama.
I would toss in Jimmy Butler, looking like Jimmy Butler this time of year as well. 38 for him last night amidst all the drama this season. So, yes, the Warriors advance. The Magic advance. I don't know. You think the Magic can do anything with the Celtics?
No.
Wagner, Boncaro, a couple 6'8" wings?
I think there's just too much going on for the Celtics, don't you, JB? They just keep coming with three-point shooters. They pass the ball well. They've been there. They know how to win playoff series. They're going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it last year with the Pacers and how that margin for error against them is very small. Now, I do that Jaylen Brown's going through some knee issues right now, but at the same time, they're defending champs until someone knocks them off. So I don't think they can do much against them, but I actually think that anybody playing in the play-in tournament is just doing it for the fact that they have to, but no one's going to actually come out of that and win the whole thing. It's just theater.
Tell that to the Heat a few years ago.
Yeah,
Did they win the whole thing?
They got there.
Respect. I'll take that back a little bit.
I will say this, too. Golden State, they may be a little older, but Golden State's got a lot of guys that know exactly how to win series.
No faith in them to win a championship. Not at all.
They get the Rockets coming up.
Yeah.
So, again,
it'll be a great matchup.
Warriors, Rockets, and then it'll be the Magic and Celtics will play tonight. Mark, is this the Heat and the Bulls meeting for the 30th time in the play-in history?
Yeah. Seems like they just...
I swear this is an annual 8-9 play-in game.
I feel like they just penciled them in at this point. Like, okay, it's going to either be in Chicago or Miami.
I talked to my dad about this, being in the Chicago area, and I'm like, man, they're just married to the play-in.
Yep.
And it's disgusting. But that's Chicago sports and right now. So be thankful, Pacers, that your ownership finally got the hint that maybe we should probably stink for a year and then rebuild. And you see what happened since then. Got Bennedict Mather in that draft. Got Tyrese Halliburton that same season that you were, quote-unquote tanking. And then now you're looking like a team that has a chance to, do some things in the playoffs.
I'm going to throw in one little hockey thing while we're talking about stuff across the country here, too, because the playoffs are getting ready to start there. Minnesota Wild clinched a playoff spot last night. They'll take on the Golden Knights. But a really cool moment last night, Marc-Andre Fleury, who's been a stalwart goaltender in the National Hockey League for a long time, at the very end of the game in overtime, as a matter of fact. Game's going to overtime. Minnesota's found out that they've clinched that last spot. So the coach puts Marc-Andre Fleury into the overtime one last time. It'll be his last regular season game. He gets the win, makes 5 saves, including a 4-on-3 that he stopped a couple of times. His 71st overtime win as a goalie, his 575th win as he's the goalie on record. It's just a cool moment to take a veteran guy with a lot of success and let him have one more moment in the regular season. I thought that was cool. So
we will take your word for it. I'm in the hockey world.
I'm a sucker for great competition. I tell people all the time, you show me the world championships of Tiddlywinks, and I might not spend all day, but I'll watch the last 15 minutes of it.
It sounds like a great COVID thing to bet on, honestly.
What's the craziest thing you bet on in COVID, KB?
There was a dabble into some Russian action there. There was, yeah. My hand is raised on that.
Mark just started doing 8-leg parlays for international soccer
games. I remember how happy people were so thrilled when IndyCar and PGA Tour came back. They were like, oh my gosh, this is glorious.
Yeah, something
it was like horse racing in China or something, live horse racing. I'm like, come on, Jinfu.
Now, we talk a lot about sleep on this show. You guys see the tip time for Game 4, Pacers-Bucks?
I've not seen the tip times yet. Scotty sent me something, but I hadn't had a chance to look at it.
A week from Sunday up in Milwaukee, so that is Central Time up there, but obviously we care about Eastern Time. Sunday night Game 4 will tip at 9:30.
I better get a nap, Jeff.
I'll probably just sleep all day Sunday and just work straight through the night.
Sounds like a nice little college thing to do. Just sleep all day Sunday, and there you go. So the home games, again, Saturday at 1 we knew about. Tuesday at 7 we figured that would be the other tip time. James, you and I will be bonding over at West 56th Street, our annual Watch the NFL Draft and a Pacer playoff game. Next Friday, Game 3 will be 8 o'clock. And then again, Game 4 a week from Sunday at 9:30. If it goes to a fifth game, that would be a week from Tuesday, and that would also be here. Tip time still yet to be announced, but I know some people like to pencil in dates. So your home games will be Saturday, Tuesday, and then a week from Tuesday. If it goes to a Game 7, you're looking at a couple Sundays from now.
It does look like Game 3, you will have to watch it on FanDuel Sports, I believe, because
Is
it's
it
listed,
ESPNU? Was that simulcast
it's listed
with it?
as ESPNU/NBA TV. But I also think that ESPNU is it blacked out if you're in the area. I've never seen it listed on
ESPNU, but again, I'm not a cord cutter.
But I don't know
so-
if it's blacked out for that game. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like you can
regionally,
get
yeah.
like you can get the game or get the channel.
I just
don't
thought
know if
NBA TV was the
but-
one that was blacked out.
Yeah,
but
so
I
let's
could be wrong.
hope that it isn't, but just being aware for people out there, like make sure you check your provider to make sure you can watch the game. But yeah, I'll be invested over at West 56th Street for
Well,
sure.
and I double checked with Jeremiah Johnson. He was informing me that unless the Pacers are on ABC, which so far none of these games are, they will broadcast every single game.
Oh, nice.
And they
Okay.
won't be blacked out. So from a FanDuel Sports Network, Chris, Quinn, JJ, I believe you will get them broadcasting every single game here in opening round.
It says
Always-
YouTube TV has ESPNU, but that doesn't mean it's not blacked out.
Yeah,
when that
exactly.
game
I have
happens.
YouTube TV and I have NBA TV, and then as soon as the game comes on, it's usually blacked out if I don't go to FanDuel. So
And of
Tough.
course, if you can't make it to the TV, you're out running errands, you're at work or doing whatever, you can always listen to it right here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan, each and every playoff game happening here. And because there is no Game 3 Thursday night, instead it's been moved to Friday, that means that you'll get to listen to the first round of the NFL Draft live here with ESPN coverage on The Fan that night. So lots of good stuff coming this week, man.
yeah, I'm excited for it. And you know me, I don't care what
Next
time
week.
it
Should
gets
say in the next week or so.
tipped off or what channel. I will find a way. Go to a bar, watch it with friends. It's always fun to be involved in these types of moments anyway.
There's
So.
those Russian websites I've told you about, James.
Hey,
trying
man,
to find games.
Get it how you live.
Kevin, I don't know how you react to this, too. I read a great article yesterday about Rory's coach talking about the strategy of not whispering a word to anyone in that final round. And he said it had nothing to do with Bryson DeChambeau. That was just the plan all along going in. Don't worry about other people, what they do, where their second shot is, if they outdrove you, whether they're in the fairway or not. Just ignore whoever you're playing with altogether and just focus in on your game.
Yeah, I got no issue with it. Are people really mad at Rory for this?
No, I think people just was interesting the way that Bryson, when he was asked, like, nope, never said a word to me.
Yeah,
And he didn't really complain about it.
I was
He
going to
just
say,
said
to
never
be
spoke
fair,
to me.
Bryson was asked very direct questions about it. I don't think
Yeah.
Bryson went up there whining that, trust me, I'd be the first one to look for Bryson whining. But no, I didn't think he was doing that at all. I thought Rory was in the moment for, I don't know, for the phrase that obviously when you've had 11 chances of that and missed every single time, you're probably going to do some things differently. Rory maybe is a little bit more of a talker than that. But, yeah, I don't think Tiger barely spoke to those guys in the final round in 2019, and I think Rory wanted to practice the same sort of treatment on Sunday.
We learned a little bit more about Tiger yesterday, too, when Adam Scott was asked by one of the young guys what it was like to play with Tiger. Even in the practice rounds, Kevin, he'd hit a great shot, and he'd look at his playing partner, who was another PGA professional or an amateur, going, hey, can you do that? Can you got that shot in your bag?
Must be nice, right?
Must be.
Good stuff. I love hearing and seeing stuff like that. So we got a lot coming up. The playoffs getting ready to start. The play-in games. I like playing games because, again, they're back to my philosophy of watching anything. They're win or go home. So there's something on the line. I like games where the other team is like, hey, you're going on vacation if you don't win this game.
Well, again, last night, just to remind folks, it's not over for those losers. I mean, the Hawks and the
It's not over for those losers.
Right.
Oh, man.
the Hawks and Grizzlies still have a chance.
Yeah, my point being there's a lot on the line.
Yeah, obviously you clinch your spot into the playoff bracket there. We should give a shout-out to Darren DeVries. Things have been a hair quiet
Woo-wee.
in Bloomington here as the portal continues to ramp up. My students were jumping into Showalter Fountain yesterday. Lamar Wilkerson, the commit there, the Sam Houston State, I think it's fair to call him a flamethrower. One of, if not the best shooters in all of college basketball last season. Shooting has clearly been an issue in Bloomington for the past few years, and it's early, and there are still more pieces that certainly need to be added to Darren Vreese's roster, but there is some definite shooting on this team, particularly from his son, particularly from Lamar Wilkerson, 45% from three last season, and this is not just a dude who stood in the corner and shot 1 3 a game. He shot a lot of them. So
7.7 attempts a game.
Yeah, that really stands out. It's one thing to have the high percentage. It's another thing to have the high volume. He had both of that. So obviously, you're always curious how things will evolve from on paper to on court. But nonetheless, from a portal standpoint, Indiana, Kentucky were the two teams that rumored to be the favorites for this kid. And Indiana wins out with Lamar Wilkerson as their shooting guard coming up next season.
It just breaks your heart for those poor, downtrodden Kentucky.
He did
folks,
have an
doesn't it?
interesting quote. Let me share that maybe in a little bit. Probably a state of where Kentucky is viewed as a program versus where Indiana is viewed as a program. I thought it was interesting what Lamar Wilkerson said yesterday and describing one of the reasons why he chose Indiana.
That's a great quote. I can't wait for you to share that with everyone. All right, coming up in a minute, we'll have the morning check down, and we got a big show ahead of you today. Mark, what do we have for guests coming up later on today? I don't want to screw up the times here.
Nate Atkins is going to join us at 9 o'clock, talk a little NFL draft. But at 8 o'clock, we're going to talk to Tony, or 8:30, we're going to talk to Tony East about the Pacers playoffs.
All right, stick around. We got a lot of great stuff coming your way today on a Wednesday. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Brought to you by Butler Bulldogs Basketball. 2025-26 season tickets are on sale now. Registration for iconic Hinkle Fieldhouse premium seats runs through May 31st. Don't miss Hinkle Magic. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
Kevin, let's start with the Indiana Hoosiers. As you mentioned a moment ago, they go to the transfer portal. Sam Houston State's Lamar Wilkerson has decided to join the Hoosiers. On threes, Joe Tipton reported that last night. Averaged a little over 20 points and 4 rebounds per game, but this is exactly what the Hoosiers need. You talk about his shooting.
Yeah, shooting's been an abundant issue, a glaring issue. Frankly, just mind-numbing that the state of Indiana's university cannot produce more of that on their roster in recent years. But Darren DeVries, while it's been maybe a little bit, slower than some fans would like, that is a clear focus with this roster. Tucker DeVries, even Reed Bailey, the big kid out of Davidson, can stretch the floor a little bit there. But yeah, Wilkerson, a great shooter at Sam Houston State, 44% on 109 threes last season. That is very, very impressive. Frankly, no one was really doing that in college basketball last year. Obviously, anytime you talk about a portal guy, it's the phrase of old, on paper. But on paper, this one stands out, and you beat Kentucky for his services, so that's a cherry on top.
JB also, he scored more than 20 points 17 different times during the season, and in the last 5 to boot. I mean, he can fill it up.
Absolutely, but obviously Conference USA is a little bit different than the Big Ten, so the level will certainly rise in this conference. But I'm excited to see how it translates, because if you can shoot, you can shoot. Maybe not at that volume or at that clip, but I'm sure Darren DeVries has a lot of history of dialing up good looks, considering how well his son shoots the ball too.
NBA games of last night. We had a couple play-in games. The Orlando Magic clinched the 7th seed in the East. They beat the Atlanta Hawks by a score of 120-95. Cole Anthony had 26 points in the win. Meanwhile, Golden State moves on. They beat Memphis 121-116. Jimmy Butler, playoff Jimmy, 38 points. Steph Curry had 37. Those two were just getting it done. They clinched the 7th seed in the West. Atlanta and Memphis now both play one more game to see if they can survive.
We'll see, but I must say, I stayed up to watch Steph Curry again, and he did not disappoint. That man is amazing.
Those two teams will play the winner of the games that you see tonight. Chicago will host the Miami Heat, Mark Dykton. What are your odds on this game?
I haven't watched a second of Bulls basketball, and most people in Chicago haven't because of their situation with streaming rights.
James laughing with you, not at you right now.
Well, you can't watch the Blackhawks, Bulls, or the White Sox, so good job, Jerry Reinsdorf. But I did put a future play on them because I think despite the Bulls not being very good, I feel like they are going to make the playoffs. You can get the Bulls making the playoffs at plus 410, so I sprinkled some money on there.
Of course you did.
But you still can, or you did?
I did yesterday. I don't know if it's still like that.
Plus 410.
Plus 410 to make the playoffs.
So to win 2 games?
Yeah.
Wow.
Dallas Mavericks still alive somehow, some way. They'll be taking on the Sacramento Kings on the road tonight, and the winner of that will then go on to play the
I always
Memphis
love
Grizzlies.
this night of the play, and it's just like, unless you have a Mark Dykton bet, you're just ready for your team to be in the lottery. There's no way these fan bases are really cheering for their teams, because you have to win 2 to get into the actual playoff bracket here. I'm like, these teams, Mavericks fans, aren't they so disgusted with their team right now? And more like their upper management, they're just like, just get us in the lottery.
No, the only people cheering for it is the owners that get the extra gate for the home game. That's it.
That's probably an accurate way to put it.
Speaking of Mavericks, Nico had his end-of-season press conference yesterday, doubled down on the move to trade Luka Doncic.
Yeah, what's interesting, and feel free to weigh in, KB, I've never had this happen, and I've been doing this, obviously, not as long as you, but Rick Welts, Dallas Mavericks CEO, Nico Harrison, the Dallas Mavericks GM, they met with the media to discuss the Luka trade and other things with the team, but you couldn't record anything, and there were no cameras allowed. So, I'm sure people took notes by hand.
But it was on the record.
Right, and they met for an hour.
Yeah.
How?
I've never had that.
Why go?
Yeah.
What's the point? We're going to just paraphrase everything you say?
Right. To me, it just brings about the opportunity to misquote people, and that's a dangerous thing.
Yeah,
So
I thought that was extremely weak.
It sounds like Nico being Nico.
Worse, when you turn those quotes around, you run the danger of, especially columnists in a city like Dallas, interpreting and telling people what was really said as opposed to a guy just having his words out there that this is what I said, this is how I said it, right?
Yeah, I don't
It's
get
crazy.
it at all.
Yeah.
Nico is a very popular thing right now. We got the quarterback, former quarterback for Tennessee, the general manager for Dallas. And last night, Mark, the Cubs, Nico Horner, an RBI triple to win the game.
If you think I stayed up to watch that game that went into extra innings on the West Coast, you are sadly mistaken.
Well, the Cubs won, so I thought you'd be happy
I
about
enjoyed that. Yeah, I didn't know they won until I looked at it this morning on my little ticker
Smart
there.
man. Smart man.
So, too, Kevin did the Reds. 8-4 winners over the Seattle Mariners. Also, very late
Shout out
last
to Gavin
night.
Lux, 4 for 4. Yes, that is now 4 in a row for the Red Legs. So very happy about that. Indians 11:05 first pitch today. So if you got nothing to do and you want to brace yourself with a lot of screaming kids over there at Victory Field, it is Baseball and Education Day over there. So they did lose last night. Reminder: Pacers schedule Game 2 for those planning purposes. April 22nd, 7 o'clock. So Game 1 we know, Saturday at 1. Game 2 will be a 7 o'clock tip inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse coming up on Tuesday.
All right, looking forward to all those things. And coming up in a moment, we'll dig down a little bit more on how Indiana's remaking their basketball roster and what Purdue's done to this point in time as both teams try to get ready for what is going to be a very competitive Big Ten tournament, or Big Ten conference leading into the tournament next year as well, as they got to reload and redo. And we'll tell you all about that next as we continue on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
One little thing I saw yesterday, too, the power of Caitlin Clark continues to be just displayed in numbers and happenings all the time. The WNBA draft was the one that took place night before last, the second most watched WNBA draft of all time, and the third place showing of that is almost half of what the viewership was. But compared to the Caitlin Clark draft, still almost half of those numbers. It's just insane how everywhere she goes, there's a spotlight, and it never seems to dim or go away.
Yeah, I've talked about this before, and we'll see it again this summer, and actually a little bit shorter than that because I believe their season starts in May, so next month. The way she carries herself in the spotlight is remarkable, and I would compare it, honestly, to, like, LeBron James. And not saying they're the same player or they have the same careers, but just the pressure from the absolute beginning and the way you kind of live up to it, because she had all eyes on her as a rookie, started off kind of slow, and then you look up and it's like, well, they're in the playoffs and she's playing well and she's a first team, all WNBA. So hats off to Caitlin. I'm excited to watch her this summer, and I'm sure she'll probably be locked into these playoffs with the Pacers before she gets into it with her own team, because they're, trying to go in a championship and they haven't been shy about it.
Training camp's got to be pretty soon, right?
Yeah, they play an exhibition game in Iowa against Brazil May the 4th. I know that, so they got to be pretty quickly getting ready to take
April
the floor
16th.
there.
May 4th, isn't that?
Yeah, I think it's within the next week that they start getting on the floor. But we'll find out and get back to you on that. But I'm looking forward to that. Kevin, you had made reference earlier in the hour to a great quote about the latest transfer for Indiana and what he had to say comparing the Indiana program and the Kentucky program, as both programs were looking to try to lure him.
Yeah, again, Lamar Wilkerson, you could make the argument he might have been the best shooter in all of college basketball last year. Again, what's really stands out to me is not just a great percentage, 44, 45%, but this dude shot a ton of threes, like high volume. He's not just standing in the corner as the third or fourth option and only shooting these wide open looks. So certainly something Indiana needs. But yeah, he had a comment yesterday of, I think Auburn and Ole Miss might have been kind of fringe teams involved with him, but mainly it was Indiana and Kentucky. And, he said he didn't want to go to Kentucky to just be another guy. And I thought that was a bit of an indictment on just kind of where the two programs are at. At Kentucky, yeah, you are just another guy, I guess, and they certainly have had much more recent success than Indiana has. Whereas Indiana, you're going to be the guy, and you need to revive a program that, frankly, given the resources invested in it, been on life support with where they've been at. So I thought the quote was telling and certainly makes sense. I understand why a player in that, sort of, okay, do I want to go to Kentucky and maybe whatever, get X amount of shots per game, or do I want to go to Indiana, be more of a lead guy, and also restore the program? If you want to mountaintop it, Kentucky's a lot closer to the peak of the mountain than Indiana is. So I thought it was, again, appreciate the candor, but also a bit of an indictment on where Indiana and Kentucky are at program-wise.
Don't you love the fact, though, JB, that a guy wants to go to a place where I can be a difference maker and I'm going to help this program get revived, and I'm looking forward to teaming up with a new coach and some new players, and we're going to turn this thing around. I love that attitude.
Yeah, I love it too. I'm also curious to know what was the pay, how much money was involved in this, and also who wouldn't want a bigger role at the same time. This is a guy who's probably trying to prove himself for the next level beyond college basketball, and so you go somewhere where you can have more opportunity to shoot the ball, display your skill set. Why wouldn't you want that? And so I'm excited to see what he does with Darren DeVries. And again, that portal, man, he's been cooking. It's slow, but it's been simmering, KB. And I
they
think
still need a lot more. I mean, they need size,
yeah.
They need rebounding, they need rim protection. Right now, I guess you could look at it and say maybe they've got probably four of their five starters, assuming Tucker DeVries is healthy. But they definitely need to add a little bit more. Again, Lamar Wilkerson, 6th year in college basketball. He was a junior college guy to begin his collegiate career. I don't know if this is COVID related or not, but they added a 6 year of eligibility for those players. So Sam Houston State, his most recent stop, and now he will finish it off in the Candy Stripes.
Looking forward to that. Of course, the NBA playoffs are underway. Pacers have their schedule released, Kevin, and for those just waking up and getting in the car, we already know about the afternoon game coming up this weekend, but it looks like Tuesday and Friday after that, right?
Yeah, Tuesday at 7, the other home game. So for those that are curious about, okay, when will they be at home? Again, Saturday, 1 o'clock, game 1. Tuesday at 7 o'clock will be game 2. Games 3 and 4 in Milwaukee. You'll get one a week from Friday opposite the NFL draft. That'll be 8 o'clock on Friday. And then brace yourself for the game 4 tip time right now. Sunday at 9:30. I was looking up the NBA schedule. I'm like, why are the Pacers and Bucks at 9:30? Like, what? Why? I mean, that's Central Time Zone. That's still 8:30. I mean, 8:30 is a late tip. Even in that time zone, you have 4 playoff games that day, and all of them involve Eastern or Central Time Zone teams at home. So somebody, I guess, had to be slotted into the 9:30 slot. I forget. I want to say it's like one's at Detroit, one's at Minnesota, maybe one's in Orlando or somewhere else. So yes, Pacers Bucks again. That is a road game, so you won't have to worry about that from a home standpoint. But that is 9:30 a week from Sunday. That's probably advantage Pacers, right?
I would think so.
Gotta think some Bucks fans will throw up the white flag and
Let's
say,
go.
That's too late for me.
I would hope so. But from a network perspective, I understand what they're doing there because you got one of your biggest stars, Antetokounmpo, and you're putting him in primetime all across the country in that 9:30 spot because it'll be 6:30 in the West. It'll be 7:30 Mountain, 8:30. So that is one game that is in the primetime window all across the country.
What's your guys' favorite series?
I like that one, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
and it's not just because I'm a Pacers guy. I just like
All right, how
the
about
competitiveness of it.
non-backyard bias?
I like Lakers T-Wolves.
I know that one is really catching my eye, Mark. I don't want to say passing of the torch. I think it's ludicrous to act like LeBron is walking up 18. But what can Edwards do? I think Edwards had kind of an up and down year.
Mm-hmm.
And after the Olympic experience, I'm really interested to see how he plays.
Yeah, but he also got so much better, led the league in made threes, shot it at 38%. He made more threes in this season than Steph Curry. Now, Steph missed some time, but that's an incredible number. But also, you talk about passing the torch. I think it's LeBron passing the torch to Luka and saying, go win us the first round. So that'll be a fun series. Mine would probably be Warriors-Rockets.
That's where I was going.
Because, how you going to say you was going there? You were just going to the backyard.
No, but because I do think it'll be the most competitive series. But I've told you what I said a minute ago, and I know you disagree with me. Don't mess around with the Warriors and the killers that they have.
No. I've said this. I don't think the Warriors are winning a championship by any stretch of the imagination. But I think that series is intriguing because it reminds me of Kings Warriors a couple years ago, where it's like, can you knock off this regime, this team, this entity in sports? And so I don't know if the Rockets can do it, but they're like the young, rude guests, and they're trying to knock off a team that's obviously been there time and time again. So that's what I'm very interested in watching.
The only road favorite in Game 1, that 7-seed Warriors over the 2-seed Rockets. They're the only road favorite in Game 1. Obviously, we still have the 1-8 matchups to be solved here. Knicks Pistons kind of intrigues me of like, just what will the Pistons be like in the playoffs? They obviously were the surprise team in the NBA this season. What does Cade Cunningham look like in his first experience in the postseason? So that one definitely catches my eye from an Eastern Conference standpoint.
Also, I heard yesterday that the Bucks are hoping to get Damian Lillard back, JB, at some point during this first-round series.
That sounds like me hoping to play Augusta National, if I'm going to be totally honest with you.
You know what? But it sounds similar to last year with Giannis.
Yeah. I don't buy it at all. Lillard is not playing in the series.
Yeah, I think you leave the door open from a tactical standpoint, like just in case, okay, maybe they have to game plan a little bit for Damian Lillard. But at the same time, I would not hold my breath on that at all. I fully expect this series to be Giannis and crew, sans Dame, and can you get it done because you have the best player in the series. And they have a shot because of that. Giannis is that good. But like I said earlier, I put it out there. I don't know if you guys have put out your predictions just yet for the series, but I got Pacers in 7.
Yeah, my brother's who lives in Milwaukee, and he's a Bucks fan. I'm like, is Dame playing? He's like, I don't know. He said they say he's progressing and there's a chance, but he's like, I don't buy it at all.
Well, Doc Rivers said yesterday it's still non-contact. Okay, I mean, he's going to need at least a week of full contact. I mean, James, I get the injuries are different, and certainly from a Dame standpoint, it's life.
Yeah,
frankly,
absolutely.
is where we're at with this. But I'd be stunned if he played in the series. Now, I would add this. If the door is cracked at all, because these are long series. mean, if you want to look at it, Game 7 is 2 weeks from Sunday. If you want to play it out like that, I do think it's important to jump on them early. Just to make, try and get James has got Pacers in 7. You don't want to sniff potentially a Game 6 or 7 in certainly one of the best players of our, lifetime, all of a sudden being ready for this team. Because without Lillard, I think Milwaukee has got a very, very big question mark in just the amount of ball handling they have. And if I'm the Pacers, I'm picking them up full court. Their starting point guard is named Ryan Rollins. Do you think anyone has heard of Ryan Rollins?
Out of Milwaukee, outside of Milwaukee, probably not.
I would argue even Milwaukee fans don't even know who Ryan Rollins is.
People at his dinner table are probably like, "Who are you again?"
Again, it sounds like
shows up to practice with "Hi, my name is."
Like a seventh inning lefty the Cubs have pulled out of their bullpen here.
Unnecessary cup shot.
Two guys that do kind of concern me. Trust me, I would happily take any bullpen arms with the Reds. Two Bucks that do kind of concern me. Non-starters because they're crazy. Bobby Portis and Kevin Porter Jr.
Yeah, Bobby had the long suspension for the failed drug test or whatever.
And when he wasn't getting kicked out of games last year in the playoffs,
he was good.
He was getting buckets.
He was good. Yeah.
And Kevin Porter Jr., those couple of Pacers matchups, and he's always been a guy that's like, if he can just kind of keep everything under control, there is some talent there. So again, two guys that aren't in Milwaukee's starting lineup, but I think the Bucks could turn to them at different points because I think if we listed the best players in the series, guys, you'd say Giannis 1, but then after that, I think you might say a Pacer player 2, 3, 4, 5 even.
What would your top 5 be? Off the top of your head. I know you haven't prepared this, but.
Yeah, Giannis 1, certainly. Tyrese and Siakam 2, 3, and then I think you make a strong case for a Pacer at 4 or 5. Would you go with Lopez? Kuzma? I just don't know if I trust Kuzma in a playoff setting.
Well, I certainly don't. We've seen him without LeBron James, and it has not looked good. So
I can't go there.
Mm-mm.
Maybe Gary Trent Jr., but boy, we're really getting in the depths of what this Bucks roster looks like. Again, Chris Middleton was traded at the deadline for those that haven't been paying attention to it for Kyle Kuzma, among other things, with the Wizards here. So without Lillard, I do think that's a much different angle to this playoff series versus where it was at last year.
And JB, it goes back to roster construction for the Pacers too. Like, yes, they have their star in Tyrese Halliburton, but they are just so solid 2 through 8. They really are.
Oh, absolutely. They're deep, man. And it's like a gift and a curse because your rotation is probably going to get shorter, and then the minutes for your star players is going to get increased. So how do you balance that with trying to get Benedict Mathurin in there, trying to get Jarris Walker in there, Ben Shepherd, Rick Carlisle, we know how much he loves him. His minutes took a dip later in the season, but do you still trust him in these moments? So we'll see how he kind of plays that chessboard a bit, KB, but I'm excited to see just the Pacers maybe embrace the rivalry, number one, that Doc Rivers is trying to downplay. Like, it's a rivalry. That's fine. That's what sports is about. But two, the opportunity to prove that last year wasn't a fluke. I think the fluke word really bothers that team, really bothers Tyrese. And it's like, no. We didn't make it to the conference finals last year because everyone was hurt around us or we got lucky. We're just that good and probably better this year if we're healthy. So I'm curious to see how they respond to that narrative.
What do you think Mathurin's playoff role will be?
Great
First
question.
playoff experience for him.
I think that ideally he's part of your closing lineup. And I think a lot of it has to do with, can you stay engaged defensively, which he's shown the ability to do throughout the season at times. And also, when it's winning time and it gets slow, do you value that?
Sure.
That one-on-one ability? Because I get it. Like, the Pacers are free-flowing, but I don't know if you watched like last night's game with the Warriors. They're just like that. Pass the ball, move the ball. But in the final few minutes, it's like we're going to go 1-4 flat, one guy at the top, Steph Curry, 4 guys at the baseline, and we're going to trust our guy to go get us a bucket. And can you trust Benedict in those moments? So I think that ideally he'd be part of your closing lineup, helping you, win some games.
Tony East is going to join us at 8:30, and I was surprised to hear from Tony, and I want to make sure we give him the opportunity to, of course, expand on it. But I think it's fair to say he is a little bit skeptical of the Benedict Mathurin role come playoff time. I don't think he is expecting throughout a minute total. I think he kind of sees him hovering around 20 minutes, which in the regular season he hovered around 30 a game. And he brought up Aaron Nesmith and Andrew Nembhard, and you would be taking some minutes away from them. And I get that. And especially with Nesmith, Neesmith is a guy that has been great for this team.
Yeah, 50, 40, 90. He's got to play.
On both ends of the floor. But I guess where I would maybe push back a little bit with Tony is this is not a Jalen Brunson playoff series. This is not a Donovan Mitchell playoff series. This isn't even a Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum playoff series. Who are you guarding Giannis with? You're not putting Neesmith or Nembhard on him. You're putting Siakam on him. I mean, that's like, so there is no Lillard to start this series. Last year you needed Nembhard, certainly Neesmith at times, when he was out there to guard a guy like Lillard. Whereas this Milwaukee team, I don't think, yes, the presence of Nembhard and Neesmith are always key to some level, but they're not the number one defensive stopper for you in this playoff series. They're just not that. That's not how Giannis operates. That's not how you want to guard. Sure, there will be some possessions where I think Neesmith is on him, but particularly Nembhard, who has struggled late. Yeah. Nembhard is not Neesmith here over the last month or so. I don't know I'm as gung-ho about, oh, yeah, they've got to be on the floor and Matherin's not going to be out there. So, obviously, I think it's a storyline to watch. Certainly it's a storyline for the playoff series. And for those that want to look a little bit big picture, whenever the offseason does hit, it'll be a storyline when you project this team moving forward.
One of the storylines I'm fascinated with, too, in a small way, I don't think it probably dictates the direction of the series, but you guys have done a great job of talking about Jarris Walker with Coach the last couple of weeks. What do you think his role is in the postseason? Used if necessary, or
I think he's in the rotation.
Plan? You think he's part of the rotation?
Yeah.
I think he's earned it.
Right now, I would have an 8-man rotation of Shepard and Bryant being the odd men out.
And then Jarris just offers you more just size-wise, which I think, if you think about it, just historically, it's very hard to win the playoffs when you don't have the bigger players. The teams that go deep, that go far, they usually have the bigger wings. Now, the anomaly in that is...
You're talking like little size.
Yeah, like literally like height-wise.
Yeah.
The anomaly in that is like Steph Curry, for example, being the best player on the championship team. He's an anomaly. Usually, it's the bigger players because I think they just last longer and they give you more fits. And, I mean, it's still a tall man's game. When things get tough, what do? You throw it to the big guy or you use your size advantage to go get an easy bucket. And I think Jarris can kind of take some of that away from the Bucks, where I get it. Giannis is going to do what he does against anybody, but can you slow him down a little bit and maybe Jarris gives you more resistance because of the size and the length. And then what he's been giving you offensively, hats off to him. Now, the playoffs are different. Serious minutes come with, brighter lights and, as my dad says, a tighter rim sometimes for some players. But I'm excited to see how he embraces that moment and perhaps grows up a bit. Because I'm sure there's going to be growing pains. I mean, I was watching Zach Edey last night in this playing game, and I was like, man, he's making so many mistakes, but he's playing so hard and had some good moments.
Yeah, 14 and 17, but did have a handful of turnovers.
Exactly, but I would expect, not in the same exact, results, obviously not throwing into the post to Jarris Walker, but something along those lines where he's going to have the growing pains, but perhaps the good, and hopefully the good outweighs the bad.
And just to remind people, I know a lot of people reach out when they see the playoff schedule come out and they're curious, okay, what does it mean TV-wise? James talked about ESPNU earlier, NBA TV. FanDuel will broadcast every single Pacer round one playoff game not on ABC. And so far, none of them are on ABC. So if you have access to Chris Quinn and JJ, just like you did throughout the regular season, you're good to go here through this first round of the playoff series.
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And, again, starts on Saturday afternoon at 1, 12:30 is the airtime here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Then Tuesday night at 7, then 9:30 start Sunday. I mean, Game 3 is Friday, but Game 4, 9:30 start.
As Zach asks here, 8-man rotation with Walker means no minutes for one of Matherin, McConnell, or Toppin. I don't think it means that at all. No, I how I would view the 8 is the normal starting lineup, and then I guess is that 9 now that I'm doing the math off the top of my head?
Yeah.
Maybe that is 9. Okay. Apologies on that, Zach. So, yes, I would not go to Shepard or Bryant. That would be 11. So, yes, I guess I am going 9. Apologies.
All right. Look, can I just say one thing? And it's a talent. You've got this little cup of coffee in one of those plastic or kind of paper coffee cups, and my anxiety is gone now since you've consumed half of that. For the first 5 minutes of this segment, it was near the top, and you were hovering right over your computer, and you were using your hands to talk, and I don't know how the coffee didn't come out. It's a remarkable skill that you have right there, but I was sure that you were going to drop coffee on that computer at any moment.
So
You're
you're
making Jeff's OCD go nuts.
Yes. You're driving me crazy there.
I mean, the cup is so small, I can almost get like my full hand around it. So it would have to be quite the fumble here. It would have to be a little.
Yeah, I mean,
It'd have to be
you're
Jonathan
clutch,
Taylor in the
KB.
Denver
You
game.
gotta tell him,
it's
What I'm
talented.
going with.
It was
now,
talent.
as you guys slept on my idea of one game out of the year, no phones allowed, are you guys in or are you guys out?
I'm all in on that.
Okay.
And again, maybe it's different for me because I'm old enough that probably half of my career, not half, the first third of my career was going to games where nobody had cell phones. So I'm used to it.
Like I said yesterday, idealistic but not realistic. But I'm in for the purposes of the question. I'd do it.
Can you imagine the NFL saying no cell phones at the Super Bowl?
No. That's not what I said.
I just said, could you imagine?
One NBA game, one MLB. Like, picture you are the Pittsburgh Pirates. Outside of Paul Skeens, you're never going to be on the SportsCenter highlight reel. If you go with the one non-phone game a year, SportsCenter might show you. They might say, look at this crowd. They're standing and clapping.
With my luck, the first Pirates game I attend would be that one. It would be the one I meet Livy Dunn, and I don't have my phone available for.
Good news for you, there are a few photos of her available on the internet, Mark.
Not with me in them, though.
You know how to Photoshop and AI?
I think Ashley might be looking for that game and make sure that you can't be bringing your phone.
You kidding me? Ashley rolls her eyes when he brings up Livy Dunn. It's the Fan Morning Show, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan, KB, JB, Jeff, and Mark Dykton. Talk a little more baseball. I like talking. I was thinking about this last night. We probably don't talk enough baseball. I know it's early in the season, but a terrific game. I know it was late last night. I saw some highlights this morning. The Cubs kind of have things rolling right now. Like, they're out of the gate, and they're playing a really tough schedule, maybe the toughest schedule in all the majors in this first month, 5 weeks of the season, Mark, and they're faring pretty well for all the grief I give
This
you
makes
personally.
Me want to throw my coffee
They're
on
actually
Jeff right
playing
now.
pretty well.
Going to
They
commit
do-
several minutes to the Cubs here. Oh,
They do have the
on
tou-
April 16th.
I know. They do have the toughest April schedule in all of baseball. They also have the easiest May schedule in all of baseball. So they're making hay despite playing the Dodgers and Padres and Rangers seemingly every other game. But they lost Justin Steele, their number 2 starter for the season. So we're going to have to see if Jed Hoyer and company can get some starting pitching. Because if they're just relying on Shoto Imanaga and a bunch of other guys, I don't like their long-term prognosis for the rest of the season to try to get innings eaten up. So,
Kevin, I will say this. Our Reds have won 4 games in a row, and we didn't have time to bring it up, but I don't know if you saw over the weekend when they started their series, did you see the line outside the ballpark in Cincinnati for Ellie De La Cruz bobblehead day before the gates even opened?
I did not. Was it long?
Yes, it was long, and they had a drone shot of it overhead. And not only was it long, but it was deep and wide. People excited.
thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'm glad you guys let that
James
bring
is
I
right
cannot
there.
look at Mark. and
Everything
these settings,
is
man.
in context, right?
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
No, but the point
I might
is,
dump this coffee on my head after that comment.
here's where I'm
Oh,
going with
man.
this. People are fired up for a Red season this year. When was the last time that happened? Oh my God! You're gonna have to throw us the break,
Just
Kevin.
a
If
deep
that's where you're
breath,
at.
a deep sigh. James, did you see Dane Brugler's mock draft?
Yes, I did.
Oh, man.
Yes, I did.
Boy, I don't
Piece
know
coming
how
out
he-
later today about that.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Mark
Don't
is
look now,
cutting
but here come the Red
Thank you,
Rays.
Mark. Mark is cutting that audio as we speak. 8 o'clock hour, Tony East will join us. We will talk a little Dane Brugler in the draft. Pray no children are in the car and can somehow connect the dots on that. Yes, the Reds have won 4 in a row, and that makes me happy.
But are you as excited about this season as everybody in Cincinnati is the
Again,
question.
it's April 16th. It's hard for me to get truly gung-ho about it, but I'm sure at some point here in the summer, I will get excited about
How many
that.
4-game winning streaks have we had over the last decade? Let's be honest.
That is a fair point. I'm curious, Mark Dykton's thoughts when we get to this Dane Brugler mock draft here. I think a name that certainly Ross Tucker was glowing about was involved in this mock draft yesterday. For those that missed it, I always enjoy our conversations with Ross. He hopped on the 9 o'clock hour with us yesterday. Very high praise for Tyler Warren. James, I am curious his general thought. Probably better for the 8 o'clock hour. The whole premium position thought with tight end. Like, if you look at it last year, the top 12 tight ends in the NFL, Brock Bowers is the only one taken in round 1. Should that matter? Should that factor at all? If you look at Kelsey and Andrews and Kincaid and Laporta, some of these tight ends that we see on teams that make deep playoff runs, they're not first-round draft picks. So given that, do you wait? And, by all accounts, this is not only a deep tight end draft at the top, but also with the depth of the position. Like, it's not just Warren and Loveland, and then it falls off a cliff. So that general thought, I just can't get out of my head going to next Thursday.
Yeah, we can actually talk about this in depth more because I did take a look through Dane's mock draft, 7 rounds, no trades. I'll actually react to it later today. I have a piece coming out in like an hour or so about it. But I think you just have to have conviction in the player, but also be realistic about what you're choosing. For example, if you see someone like Jahad Campbell is still there, like, Will Johnson is still there, or the cornerback out of Michigan, to me, if you feel like that's a better player, then go ahead and take that player, because who's to say you can't get somebody that's pretty talented in the second round? A guy like that I've gravitated towards is Mason Taylor. Now, you might have to move up in the second round to get him. I don't know if he lasts till 45.
The son of?
Is he the
son of Jason Taylor.
Is that his son or
Yes.
his uncle? Am I tripping?
Boy, pretty sure son.
Son, okay. I'm just making sure. Actually, yes, that's his son, and his uncle is Zach Thomas or whatever, which is pretty crazy.
But now you have me worried.
Yeah, no.
So I will look this up while you continue to chat.
But someone like him, I think, would also fit what the Colts want at tight end, and you don't have to mirror yourself to that position in round 1. So a lot of it comes down to me still, who's the best player available, and then evaluate from there.
All right, coming up in a moment, we'll talk more about
Jason
that.
Taylor is his father.
There
Yes.
you go.
6-time Pro Bowl edge rusher. Jason Taylor, the father of Mason Taylor. Yeah, I mean,
Talk about
again,
a player,
no pressure.
too. Yeah.
yeah, talk about a stud. Yeah, exactly. So, that overall thought, I think, is one to get into a little bit more.
All right, we'll do that in a moment here as it is the Fan Morning Show, a show with great depth and feeling. Mark Dykton right here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
That means Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Mark Dykton on the ones and twos. I'm Jeff Rickard, and we've got a draft for the NFL coming up a week from tomorrow. And JB on the Athletic, Dane Brugler, all 7 rounds, no trades, his mock draft. Really impressive stuff. I was cruising through that early this morning, and you can spend an afternoon with that if you'd like to.
Yeah, I would encourage everyone to go check it out at theathletic.com, as well as The Beast, which gives you pretty much all the draft knowledge you need to know. I did a piece recently where I was talking about a potential Colts target at linebacker, Demetrius King Jr. out of South Carolina, who I found out through The Beast is related to Gladys Knight and Aretha Franklin.
We got relatives everywhere.
And
Say no more.
And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's got to be the best rookie singer ever when he does all the hazing and things like that.
There's your national anthem for the next 10 years.
Exactly.
Boom.
So, and in addition to that, he's cousins with D'Angelo Hall. So just random stuff you find out reading. Yeah, that's some family lineage right there. But
23andMe, I'd like to be.
Yeah.
Apologize to Max and Rosie. Their family tree's not going to look like
exactly.
that.
So check that out. Also, feel free to check out Dane's mock draft. I thought it was pretty solid for the most part and what the Colts' needs are. And again, he's making 257 picks by himself, so I can give him some grace with the no trades because I would fully expect the Colts to trade back, especially on day 3, to recoup some more picks and take some more shots at the board. So hats off to Dane, man. I don't think he sleeps this time of year, but I love his work.
He'll be up with us tomorrow, 9:30. Is that correct, Mark?
Correct, yep.
Dane Brugler from the Athletic NFL Draft Analyst. And, Mark, he had Tyler Warren to your Bears at number 10. After last segment, I'm nervous to ask. That made you feel what type of way?
Well, not as excited as Jeff was talking about Ellie Dela Cruz
all the time is what we've learned about Mark Dykton.
I don't like that, to be quite honest.
Tell us
just
more.
because it seems like a luxury pick for the Bears. They already have Cole Kmet signed to a decent deal, and I think there are bigger needs than another tight end. I would rather them address either side of the trenches. If I am Ryan Poles and the Bears front office, I'd rather get someone on the offensive line or defensive line, maybe an edge rusher or something. So 10th for Tyler Warren, I would be taking trade calls. So if the Colts want to come up to 10 maybe, or anyone else that's interested in Tyler Warren, if he's there, by all means take him. Take Ashton Genty, who's also been projected to the Bears. I want trench guys. So the phone is ringing.
Look at Mark, true football guy.
Never sounded more like Chris Ballard in your entire life.
I know.
Right there.
Pick up the phone.
Now, again,
That's all right. I pick it up and call you and tell you, go to hell and then hang back up.
he had Colston Loveland, then to the Colts at 14, and the write-up that Dane Brugler had on this is, I'm sure there's Loveland Indy fatigue because it's a frequent pairing in mock drafts, but I'm not switching things up for the sake of variety. With his athleticism and pass-catching skills, Loveland is one of the best weapons his draft class has to offer and would upgrade the Colts' offense immediately.
How big of a difference do you think it is in Chris Ballard's eyes to go from Warren to Loveland? Do you think he thinks that they're basically the same, or is that does he think that Warren is that much better to where he's like, you know what, I might have to go up and get him?
That's the money question.
Yeah, it's such a great question. Part of the reason why I believe a little bit of the Loveland to Colts stuff is when I think of the tight end room, and I think of running back a little bit in this light as well with the 2025 Colts. What's the issue in the Colts tight end room? Catching. It's not blocking. It's catching. Well, what does Colston Loveland do well? Catch. I mean, that is his, the questions about Loveland, and James has brought this up several times, it's more about the shoulder injury and him as a blocker and those sorts of things. It's not as him as a pass catcher. I think one of the most amazing stats about Colston Loveland from last season, Michigan's 3 worst passing games of the year all came with him out of the lineup. You don't see a tight end have that type of impact on an offense. So that is where I point to the Loveland thing and think, all right, if you're in his camp and you say, hey, guys, you don't love the blocking film, well, he battled a shoulder injury all year. He'll be a better blocker once he's healthier. He's a little bit younger if you want to play that game. Now, conversely, Warren, it's the versatile tight end. You put him in a huddle, and Jeff, you don't know if you're running a pass play or a run play. And I don't want to boil it down that simply, but that's part of the appeal to it. I would push back a little bit, James. I forget who we've had on. I've had on so many draft people, but those people that think that Penn State used Tyler Warren in such a gimmicky way that NFL teams won't replicate that. I can't see Shane Steichen looking at the Penn State film and saying, too gimmicky. We're going to play him as a traditional tight end. I still think they would involve him.
Yeah.
As a Wildcat. I'm not acting like they're going to Wildcat him to the degree that Penn State did.
Yeah.
But this is a dude that he's hard to tackle. I mean, you would be foolish not to give him the ball in some unconventional ways and see if NFL guys, have a greater level of success than some of those college guys did.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, though, with the Colts in particular, it's like you have enough guys who are gadgety and they're really good ball carriers as is. I think of a guy like Josh Downs. You can pretty much get him open the phone booth. He's that good of a route runner and a separator. Obviously, Anthony Richardson, if he's the guy, he can run. JT, he can run. So do you necessarily want to put Tyler Warren in the Wildcat when you have those guys at your disposal? But on top of that, yes, I agree, KB, that it isn't necessarily going to be like this black and white thing where you have to be the Jack Doyle, a second coming.
Shane's not that stupid.
Yeah, it's going to be different. It's got to be different. But at the same time, you still do need a lot of this. I think the frustration with Colts fans, and it's right, is we need someone to just do the job. Like, we get they have all this upside and all this ability. It was like that with Jelani Woods. The injuries kind of hurt him. But can you get somebody that just does the job? And if it isn't fancy, who cares? Because Jack Doyle wasn't fancy. He just got it done. And so maybe that's a bit of the frustration there.
Well, and I would say this too. I think in an ideal world, you would find at 14, in an ideal world, you would find, in my opinion, a defensive lineman to build around for the future. And then you come back in round 2 and take a tight end, and you hope that tight end is like the Sam Laporta of a second-round tight end that turned into a great player, the Mark Andrews third-round pick that turned into a great player, the Travis Kelce third-round pick that turned into a great player. If you want to go further down the list, George Kittle was a little bit of a later draft pick. Like, I think in a perfect world, you would rely on this tight end draft depth. And I don't know if the right defensive lineman is there at 14. But I think that would be the best case, like the crystal dream lottery situation for this team is you get a super impactful defensive lineman for the future. Because, again, right now, your two best defensive linemen are north of the age of 30. You can't ignore that. The only defensive end under contract after next season is Latu. You can't ignore that. So that is what does give me pause to the constant tight end mock to the Colts at 14.
Couple of things when I hear gadget player and gadget plays for a guy like Warren, it just says to me he can do so many different things.
Right.
I think I look at that as kind of a compliment.
Well,
also,
I think that is the accurately optimistic way to look at it. And again, I don't think Shane Steichen is this old crusty offensive coordinator who says, no, you'll come into our system and you'll slot in here. No, I think he'll look at the Penn State film and say, wow, some of that stuff is really intriguing. How can we involve that?
Yeah. A couple of things I wanted you to comment on, too, KB, on this Dane Bugler mock draft. I'll get that name right eventually.
Brugler.
Thank you. Brugler. Thank you. Man, this is what happens when I make fun of the Cubs for 3 days in a row. I get it all back in one day.
Hey, get it all out now, and 9:30 tomorrow you'll be ready.
That's right. How about the Indiana kid, C.J. West, at defensive tackle? Speaking of defensive linemen, at 117. And Brugler also had Riley Leonard in the 5th round at 151 coming to the Colts.
What was C.J. West at the pro day, local pro day, James, or is it just Rourke?
He was not there. Otherwise, we would have talked to him.
Because he's the other one. Yeah, he had Curtis Rourke a lot later. That's what caught my eye, too. You mentioned Leonard round 5. I think he had Rourke round 7. I wouldn't mind Rourke, honestly, as a day 3 pick for the Colts. I mean, to me, it's kind of like, people are like, well, I'm worried about his injuries. Well, I mean, if you're the third-string quarterback, you're probably not going to be in very many chances to get injured. I kind of look at your day 3 QB or your third QB as, all right, you're in a panic mode. All of a sudden, a guy's gone down. You've got 1 week to get ready. Can somebody somewhat steady the ship? And Curtis Rourke strikes me as a dude that could be able to do that. Just steady it. Not asking him to do anything crazy here.
Most third-ranked quarterbacks or third-string quarterbacks are that way, too.
I mean, that's your hope. I mean, again, I know it's a bit lofty there. What do you think about Shedeur Sanders, James? You see where he fell to?
I actually didn't take a look at that. I looked solely at the Colts picks and kind of just skipped through it.
He had Shedeur Sanders falling all the way to Pittsburgh at 21.
I don't mind that spot. I mean, that would probably be a good spot for Shedeur. assuming that Aaron Rodgers eventually ties the knot with the Steelers. I know they're flirting very hard right now, but no one's making a commitment.
Can you tie a knot to like an anchor and just jump in the water at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I personally wouldn't tie my knot to that player just because we know what he brings and the circus that usually follows. But I don't hate it, KB. I don't know if he slides that far. I think he is probably the player that I'm most intrigued to see where he goes because he can go in the top 10 or he could go, in this scenario, the bottom 10 of the first round or around the bottom 10. So I'm curious. I also saw that Will Johnson slid as well.
Which, again, he's got the injury, too.
Yeah.
He just did the private workout the other day.
So
that's a corner out of Michigan for those.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the scenario, and again, for the purposes of our show, the Colts picking at 14. Again, no trades in this. He would be doing a mock draft forever if that was the case. But if Jahad Campbell is still there, which he is in this scenario, goes to the Bucks.
Linebacker from
at
Alabama.
19. If Will Johnson is still there, he goes to the Green Bay Packers at 23. Are you passing up both those guys for Colston Loveland?
Yeah, and I
don't know.
I think it's a totally fair point you bring up. My question would be, why would teams be trading up? Who is trading up in this?
Good point.
What?
Right.
Yeah.
Last year we didn't see a whole lot of trade ups, and you obviously saw premium guys go in the first 10 or 12 picks. For those curious on the quarterback note, I did a scan of this. I hope I have all the names. But he has, because I am interested, will the Colts draft a quarterback? Would they draft one as early as day 2? And again, day 2 is a week from Friday. That's round 2 and 3. Dane Brugler has Jackson Dart, 33 overall. It's the first pick of round 2. Jalen Milroe, 34 overall. Tyler Shuck out of Louisville, 40 overall. So he's got 3 quarterbacks going in the first 7 or 8 picks of round 2. He's got Quinn Ewers in the middle of round 3 to Seattle, pick 82. So he's got 4 quarterbacks on day 2 there. Dart, Milroe, Shuck, Ewers. Again, I know a lot of people are curious, especially about Ewers. It seems like the Colts have, had a lot of contact with him in the draft process. I've seen that play out multiple ways in my history and covering the drafts. I am not a fan of taking a quarterback in round 2 or 3. But
that's a luxury pick as well, I think. And not so much a luxury for the Colts, but that's a position you don't need to address that
Mark,
early.
it's a luxury pick when you don't have reps to give out.
Right.
Like Richardson and Jones need all the reps.
Yeah.
It'd be one thing if you had like Flacco or whatever, Matt Hasselbeck or some quarterback that didn't need reps and you knew what you were getting here. But like
every quarterback needs reps. That's what I was told at the owners' meetings, KB.
Yeah, every quarterback needs reps, and Richardson and Jones need all of them.
Some need more than others, yeah.
Right. So
right. It's not a luxury. It's not a luxury pick from a talent standpoint. It's a luxury pick because you've paid Daniel Jones and you have Anthony Richardson, and you just don't have reps to give out for those guys.
No.
Yeah. You kind of skated right over the Riley Leonard pick.
I'm just not a big Leonard at the next level guy. I'm not. I think a ton of development is needed as a thrower. And again, I don't know if the Colts are the right situation to develop that. I love everything he stands for. Obviously, what he is as a runner speaks for itself. I probably should be more appreciative of what he did at Notre Dame for a year, but there were some balls where he was throwing from you to Mark Dykton that hit that laptop.
Yeah, I saw that for a whole year at Duke as well. Terrific athlete, competitor, will do everything you can to convert your 3rd and 5,
blue
all that
chip
stuff.
character, all that stuff.
But at the NFL level, does that translate? And I'm not sure his game translates to the NFL level.
When they can find you, I think one of the more accurate things Ballard has ever said about quarterbacks is at some point you have to deliver from the pocket. At some point, they'll cut your legs off. Either you're banged up or NFL athletes, frankly, just keep you in that pocket. So when they do that, can you deliver from the pocket? And I think, honestly, with Richardson and Daniel Jones, both of those are very apparent questions.
Out of all 257 picks, the guy I feel the worst for, Curtis Rourke. You see where he's going?
Was it Green Bay in 7?
Packers suck.
Yeah, poor guy.
Curtis Rourke screams a Packer. Canadian quarterback? That just fits perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Another team that might be in the market for a tight end, it seems like, all of a sudden, the Baltimore Ravens. non-committal to the future of Mark Andrews at this point in time. I don't know if you've seen that. I've seen that in a couple of places now, JB.
I did not see this, but I would imagine they're not thinking that anybody in this draft class will be better immediately than Mark Andrews. So
Mark Andrews is still only 29, though. That's surprising.
Yeah.
It seems like he's older.
Really,
than
I would
that.
have guessed north of 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been through some injuries and things like that. So maybe that makes him seem a little bit older. And also, he's just been there forever, it seems like, as well. But, yeah, I'm curious to see how that all plays out. But going back to the quarterback thing just for a second, I do just want to hammer home that they had Cam Ward going 1. This is Dane Brugler's mock. And the second quarterback was Shedeur.
Mm-hmm.
So no one, jumped him in this thing.
Yeah,
It's just
Dart
that
was 33 overall.
Yeah, it took a while for him to get off the board. So we'll see how it plays out because that is, again, I'll be locked in on number 14, but I think once we get our pick in and we analyze whoever it is, at that point my attention will turn to, if Shedeur hasn't been picked by that point, where does he go? Because it seems like it could go anywhere. I know he doesn't go to the green room or the draft room, probably for the best, because I was thinking, man, you might be sitting there for a long time, and it's always awkward when you hope to get picked, but then you're sitting there and people are kind of just looking at you, waiting for you to have your moment.
Dane Brugler tomorrow, 9:30, NFL Draft Analyst. I thought this Tyrese Halliburton sound was interesting yesterday. This was him talking a little bit about maybe the playoff mindset for the Pacers entering this postseason versus last year. Again, this is Halliburton after Pacers practice yesterday.
I think last year we were just satisfied with being in the playoffs. Everything from there was kind of playing with house money, to be honest with you. And this year I think we have real expectations to do something special as a group. And when I say something special, I mean a championship. So
I like that. I like that attitude. Let's go.
Do you think that is a little bit what Rick Carlisle was getting at with us yesterday of this is different? Like, yes, we have the home court, but, last year on Wednesday before round 1, the conversation was this team hasn't won a playoff game in 6 years, hasn't won a playoff series in 9 years. I mean, we're not sniffing that conversation now. Do you think that piano is probably too big of a term, but do you think there's a little bit of that on the Pacers' back, or?
I still think they'll play pretty free and with more house money than not. Because
I actually think there's a lot of pressure on the Bucks because you just never know with stars and
there's a ton of pressure on the Bucks just because if you lose in the first round again, what does that mean for Giannis's future?
Right,
Is he still happy? He hasn't given any indication that he'll bolt and leave, but you just never know, especially in a player empowerment era of the NBA. But I say all that, and I still think that there is a considerable amount of pressure to prove that you weren't the Atlanta Hawks from a few years ago where you made this one kind of anomaly run and you haven't been back there, haven't sniffed it since. And I think they're a better team overall than these Atlanta Hawks teams, obviously. So we'll see how it all shakes out. And I also want to just see how Tyrese responds to his second playoff run. And I know
it was up and down first playoff run
exactly.
for him.
And I know Rick was very complimentary of him. He's throwing every defense at him. He's seen everything already. Not quite, in my opinion, because I still think there's more chapters that you have to kind of get through in the playoffs, which every star of every era has had to kind of go through when it comes to those growing pains.
I also think from a competitor standpoint, if you're a Pacers player, you spent the entire offseason thinking, man, so many games we let get away against the Boston Celtics, right? I mean, I know on paper it looks like a rout, but 3 of those games could have gone either way in the last 10 seconds, Kevin. And I think as a competitor, you're like, we want to get back. We want to rectify that situation.
Yeah, and let's be honest. I mean, you can't ignore it. The Pacers are once again catching a golden injury break. I mean, no Damian Lillard.
Never hurts.
I mean, it's
you don't apologize for it. Just take advantage of
right.
it.
I mean, you've earned home court. Let me be very clear.
Yeah.
You earned 50 wins, but you are catching a goal just like you caught the golden break last year with no Giannis and the Anunoby injury in that Knicks series that played out as well.
And vice versa. Like, no team apologized for you not having Benedict Mathurin or Tyrese at the end of the series as well.
Well, yeah, but I don't want to act like, Mathurin's absence is the same as...
No, I meant more so Tyrese. Like, not having him for the last 2 games of the playoffs last year. Does that extend the series, things like that?
All right, we'll talk to Tony East about those things coming up in just a few minutes. He joins us at 8:30. In the meantime, check it down, Mark.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Butler Bulldogs Basketball. 2025-26 season tickets are on sale now. Registration for iconic Hinkle Fieldhouse premium seats runs through May 31st. Don't miss Hinkle Magic. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
And Kevin, we've been talking about it. If you're just joining us this morning, the full schedule for the first round of the Indiana Pacers and Milwaukee Bucks has been released. We knew that Saturday at 1 o'clock would be game one, but now we know where everything else falls out.
Game 2, the other home game here to lead off, will be Tuesday. That is April 22nd at 7 o'clock. Then as the series shifts to Milwaukee, Game 3 will be a week from Friday. That is 8 o'clock opposite the NFL Draft. And boy, brace yourself for Game 4, folks. In Milwaukee, that is a 9:30 Eastern tip a week from Sunday. So those are the 4 tip times we know. If there is a Game 5 back here in Indy, it would be on April 29th. That is also a Tuesday. And just to remind everyone, you will get Chris, Quinn, JJ, the FanDuel Bally crew. You will get them opposite every game in this series that's not on ABC. So far, 4 games have been announced of tip times. None of them are on ABC. So if you can watch the Pacers during the regular season, you can still watch them here via the local stream and obviously on our airwaves every single game throughout their playoff run.
The great Mark Boyle. Looking forward to hearing his voice in these playoffs. In college basketball, Indiana has a new face after the transfer portal was kind to them yesterday, James.
Amar Wilkerson, big-time bucket getter from Sam Houston. He can really shoot the basketball. Shot over 40% from 3 on about 7 or 8 attempts last season. Now, it's Conference USA. He's going over to the Big Ten. I expect the challenge to be a bit stiffer, but a big pickup for Darren DeVries as he continues to build that first-year roster.
All right, Major League Baseball last night saw the Cubs and the Reds both get a win. Hopefully that happens a lot this year until the 2 teams play. Then you want the Reds to win. Kevin?
Yeah, I'm probably good, honestly, for the just the Reds getting the win part, and the Cubs can do whatever the Cubs would like to do there. But yes, that's 4 in a row for the Red Leg. Shout out, though, Nico Horner, big triple there in the top of the 10th at probably 1 a.m. last night, Mark?
I wouldn't know. My eyelids were busy.
As much as it pains me to say, the Cubs have played some nice baseball. Nice response from the Tokyo issues earlier in the year.
You want to watch some local baseball? Head over to Victory Field tonight, this afternoon, as a matter of fact, Kevin. 11:05. The Toledo Mud Hens.
Can hear the kids screaming from here. Education Day over at Victory Field. So homestand weather looks, I think, fairly decent here the rest of the week. So you can check out the Indians over at Victory Field. Speaking of portal additions, did see Butler got what I would assume will be their starting center coming up this season. Drayton Jones from South Carolina State averaged 13 and 5 last year, provides some rim protection. So Butler has certainly revamped a lot backcourt wing-wise and a new front court as well. Drayton Jones, 6'10", 240, coming over from South Carolina State.
All right, and later on tonight on The Fan, we've got some playoff basketball for you, or play-in basketball, as the case may be, as we have the Miami Heat taking on the Chicago Bulls. So, Mark, maybe you could listen to that one if you don't feel like watching it.
Maybe.
And this is just to keep your season alive, right?
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah, because then these are you have to win 2 to get into the playoffs, which is, again, you're just setting yourself like the first for an NCAA tournament. You win, you get in, and then you get smacked.
So the Grizzlies will await, Kings and Mavs, the winner of that.
Yep.
The winner of that on Friday will be the 8th seed in the East. For the 37th year in a row, it's the Bulls and the Heat in a play-in game. The winner of that will get the Hawks. And whoever wins that one will get Cleveland. Again, those games are on Friday night here.
Yeah, and you can hear both games tonight right here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Tony East stops by to talk Indiana Pacers playoff basketball next. It's the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, Jeff, and Mark Dykton, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Talk a little Colts with Nate Atkins coming up at 9 o'clock. But right now, the 8:30 segment of the show, the great, the highly accomplished guitar hero, Tony East, joins us here on the Payless Liquors.
That's all he's good for.
Hotline. Wow, I'd put that very high on the LinkedIn resume. Is that on the resume at all, Tony East? Have you added that to the profile?
No, I have not. I can't believe this is coming up again. I can't believe it.
I think he's branding you this way.
Are you just like shy to talk about it, or are you just more stunned that it's playoff basketball and somehow I've started the segment with your guitar hero success?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Maybe I'll just wear a cape from now on and lean into the hero part of it, but not the guitar part of it.
Picturing you in the press conferences, the national TV cameras pan to you during the
Oh,
playoffs,
Rick
and
would
there you
lose it.
are with your cape
Oh,
on.
gosh.
Yes.
I forgot that's coming up. That's a good warning.
I could see you and Rick Carlisle in a hell of a guitar hero duel, frankly.
Oh, boy.
But yeah, we'll say that with Rick for next Tuesday. Okay, Tony, we know game one coming up on Saturday. Hell, the Pacers are practicing today. I can't imagine the last time they've had back-to-back practices. Non-Giannis division, what worries you about the Bucks?
Oh, man. I mean, they've been really good of late, and they started 2-8 and have been decent since then. But the way that they've been finding good offense with Kevin Porter Jr. and Giannis on the floor together in a way that they kind of haven't at all since they traded away Drew Holiday, it is really tough. I think it's going to be something the Pacers have to really deal with, right? Especially when they put shooters around that group. Any combo of Taurean Prince, AJ Green, Gary Trent, like they're scoring a ton with those units on the floor. And the way Giannis has gotten better with that mid-range fadeaway shot, the one that sunk the Pacers in December when he was drilling them in the second half, and has upped his passing level. You know, he's averaging a triple-double in April. Regular season games, like his assist per game number this year is way better. You know, it's hard to when he's surrounded by shooters and like one other capable scorer, it's so hard to guard the Bucks. You can't just double Giannis all the time in the post. You can't just send a bunch of guys to him when he's barreling down the floor in transition. Like, you're going to give up something else that's threatening, and that's why the Bucks led the league in 3-point percentage. So they're a different team than last year, even though they have some of the same weaknesses. And I think that because that group or that lineup that I've kind of described has been playing so well, they have other ways to be really effective than what you think of when you think of the Bucks, and that's going to stress out the Pacers defense in a way that I think is going to be really challenging. I know that is still technically a Giannis answer, but the fact that the Bucks have something else threatening is going to be tough on the Pacers, I think.
Locked On Pacers. It's a great listen. Tony East. That's where you can find his audio work. Is it T East NBA? I always forget your Twitter handle.
I just went to the classic Tony R East now.
Tony R.
Don't want to box myself in.
The R for ringer in the Guitar Hero world. Tony R. East on Twitter. I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I was a bit groggy this morning listening to Locked On Pacers, but I thought I heard a tad bit of skepticism maybe in the role for Benedict Mathurin in this playoff series. Is that fair to say?
Not skepticism necessarily. I just wonder in general for the Pacers in the playoffs, like how big his role is going to be, because if they keep starting Aaron Nesmith, who has earned that spot and is playing good defense, and Aaron Nesmith continues to score efficiently like he has for the last name your time, 2 months, 3 months, 1 month, whatever, he's going to play a lot, right? He should. He played a ton in Milwaukee in their last game when he was a very important defender in that game and made shots. And if he's playing a lot, and their best guard defender, Andrew Nembhard, is going to play a lot in this series. He played a lot last year. Don't get me wrong. I think Benedict Mathurin is very important to them in this postseason and also should play a good amount. But where are his minutes going to come, right? It's not necessarily, I don't think he's a good matchup against the Bucks. In fact, I think that's one of the best matchups for him of any team in this postseason. I don't know where the minutes would come from in a way where they say, yes, we need to play Mathurin instead of one of those other two guys. So it's not even necessarily on him. I think it's more so those two guys in their defense and the starting five have been really good. And now that Nesmith's been knocking in shots, they can't take him off the floor. He's going to be really important, I think.
I fully expect Benedict Mathurin to be playing this in his headphones before game one. And then he's going to go out there and score like 20 points and come back and be like, you like that, Tony East? You like that?
Well, that would not be surprising at all, right? Like, that's the second biggest story behind their own success, obviously, in the playoffs, is how good he plays. And It's really interesting thing about it, just because on one hand, the theory of what the playoffs are all about, with everything being slower and one-on-one scoring, coming into the limelight. Oh, look at Jimmy Butler last night. Like, he carried the Warriors to a win because he's really good at that kind of stuff when he locks in. Like, if Benedict Mathurin can show off his strengths in that setting, that's when he's at his best, is that kind of game. He won the Pacers multiple games last month that turned into that kind of game. So it's very possible he is just a much better playoff player than a regular season player. However, the Pacers were very happy and proud last year in the playoffs that they didn't really slow down, right? They still played fast when they could. They tried to push in transition. They didn't let, the other team set the tempo of games, and they won 2 rounds playing that way. And, that was tough for other teams to deal with. Why would they not keep trying to play that style? So I'll be very curious how much that pendulum swing benefits Benedict Mathurin, right? If the game does slow down for the Pacers, then he'll be important. He'll have to be awesome. But if they keep playing fast, we'll have the same conversations and questions about what the Pacers are good at and what he's good at, and making it all fit together. And it doesn't mean he'll play bad. It's just another topic of conversation that I think is going to be a big deal for him.
One thing I want to follow up on, Tony, when you talked about the Pacers, is obviously they've had success. And last year, it was kind of house money. We'll see what they do, but there's expectations this year. So how has the team maybe addressed that narrative? And I know we can maybe overhype it to a degree, but it is a thing to say, oh, the Pacers did that one year, whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, Tyrese Halliburton said exactly what you just said yesterday, like to a T. He said the words house money, so bravo.
Well, I cheated earlier listening to his clip on the air, so I can't take full credit.
Yeah, but I think it's a big difference, right? Like, I asked Miles Turner about that too. Like, what feels different this year compared to last year? When last year you get to the playoffs and, like, I know Rick Carlisle didn't say this at his end of season presser after they beat the Hawks, but like, that felt like a big deal for the Pacers at the time. They made the playoffs as this young ascending team that had basically no playoff experience at the time of their guys on the roster, or very little. And they got a lot, making it to the conference finals. And this year it's the opposite, where they have a lot and they have confidence and they're the favorites, in their first series. Like, they can say and should say a lot of things about how it feels very similar and the prep's going to feel the same way, but like, it's not the same. It's different, right? Like, what this takes. It's not going to be us asking every day, hey, what did Pascal say today? Like, how did he get you guys going, since he's been there, done that before? So I think that's going to help them in terms of how to carry themselves and how, not to get too high or too low. Like, that's what Siakam said his messaging was basically all the time last year after big wins or big losses, right? And I think they did a good job pushing through that kind of stuff. But I also think that they made it clear yesterday that they're going to try to approach this week exactly the same as how they approached last week at this time. And they're playing the same opponent in terms of prepping for the Bucks and focusing on what they want to focus on and getting ready to play their game. And that also worked last year. It'll be different with home court advantage, right? It's a different way to start a series. It's a different way to have things change from game to game. And they didn't win a single game one last year, right? So their game one prep's going to be really important. But I think that they acknowledge that it does feel a little different just because they did what they did last year, even though they don't kind of want it to feel different or affect how they're playing.
Tony East joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline right now. Tony, we were talking about playoff rotation a little while ago. What do you think the rotation looks like for the Pacers this week?
Yeah, they played 8 guys primarily against the Bucks last year. They didn't play a backup 5 hardly at all. They tried Jalen Smith in game 1, didn't go very well. Tried Doug McDermott a little bit in game 1. They didn't see him very much the rest of the series. I think if I was just building it myself or thinking about what they're going to do, I'd imagine that the starters plus Benedict Mathurin, T.J. McConnell, Obi Toppin would be the 8 that seem like a lock to play. Right. The question is how much and if they expand it to 9 for any reason, because, the Bucks front court rotation is, now that Bobby Portis is back from his suspension, the same as last year, right? A lot of Portis, a lot of Brook Lopez, and then it's Giannis in there. That's different than last year, but, they don't need to play a backup 5 necessarily. I wonder how much they'll play Thomas Bryant or if they'll just play Obi Toppin as the backup center like they did last year. Siakam, Toppin was the front court group off the bench, but if Giannis is playing, that does change, what you'll need strategically from your reserve front court. Obviously, Mathurin's going to be their backup wing. Do they ever turn to Ben Shepherd like they did last year? Do they ever turn to Jarris Walker, who, took Shepherd's minutes late in the season? I don't know, but it feels like, Walker's size, or if they have any bench struggles like they did during the season, could be a button that they try to press in this series if things aren't going their way. And then McConnell, they just need another guard off the bench. I mean, they're going to need him to play. And if he isn't playing well, it's going to be tough for them to put together a backcourt rotation. So I'd imagine it would be the same 8 as last year, unless the Bucks surprise them with more size and maybe they give Thomas Bryant a few minutes here and there. But by the same 8, I mean Mathurin instead of Shepherd, obviously. But beyond that, it's going to be tough to see what the distribution looks like, just because this year it's different. The starting 5 was sensational, and the bench wasn't as good as they were last year, and they could rely on the bench in the postseason. I'm not sure they'll be able to do that as much this year unless they get some changed results.
No Walker, or maybe a scaled-back Mathurin. Tony East, you're not making the future Pacer fans very happy with this thought.
Well, I mean, look, I get that that's tough in some ways, and like finding out what those guys can do in the playoffs is important, but you can't just throw them out. Like, you need to win, and if they're helping you win, they'll play a lot, right? That's what Rick Carlisle's going to say and should say, but it's going to be hard to do, right? Like last year, the guy who played the 9th most minutes in the first round was, I think, Isaiah Jackson. He played 24 minutes. Like, that's 4 minutes a game, right? There's just not room in the rotation in the playoffs unless the right matchup dictates itself. And in the second round, they played the Knicks, and the Knicks play a bunch of centers, and they could actually play Isaiah Jackson that series, and he played well. And I don't even mean that to talk about just centers. I just mean if the matchup's right, they've shown they'll play 9 guys or like try to get minutes for the right guys. The Bucks are very similar in their front court size. They don't play a backup center, so to me they're sticking with the same 8 makes a lot of sense, unless they think they just need to throw size at Giannis the whole series. Then maybe they'll play more Jarris because he could be a guy that they could use for size. But I don't know that just one guy on Giannis is the difference. They're going to guard him in multiple ways with 2 or 3 players. So maybe they play those guys more than I think. But just looking at what the history of what we've seen the Pacers do, I don't see a ton of minutes for Walker, and maybe Mathurin does if he plays well. But that's just what history tells us this team will do.
Tony, not really a question, more of a statement as we let you go. Just make sure that my name is next to yours in the seating chart, because I've had some issues. Whenever there's a big game, they'll put me somewhere else, and I'm like, wait a second, all these new people ain't been here. So make sure that it's Dustin, it's you, it's me, and I can, and Alex Golden in there as well. I don't want to move him off his spot, but the crew that I see the most, I want to see some family on Saturday. Is that okay?
Nobody knows my in-game jinx ability better than you, too.
This is true.
So I don't rattle these off with other people as much.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
There you go. Tony East, Locked On Pacers, joining us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Coming up in just a moment. Big productive week, I think, for both Purdue and Indiana in very different ways. We'll tell you about that as we continue the Fan Morning Show, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Got everybody's shoulders rocking again this morning, Mark Dykton.
It's my job. Well, not my job, but
Part of
one
it.
of the perks, I guess.
It's good stuff. We
Better than
appreciate
other
that.
stuff rocking, I guess.
You're going there all morning long. I don't know what's happening today. It's the Fan Morning Show, KBJB and Jeff, along with Mark Dykton. Get your mind straight today, okay? That's all I'm asking.
You ran us right in the guardrail about 7:48
there. You took
about
it there.
baseball. I mean, I know they say like
took it there.
think about baseball during those situations, but you went way into the weeds.
It was your interpretation of what I said that
I
went
think
into the
everyone
weeds.
went the same way I did.
I'm not one that defends Mark very often, but boy, how can you not?
Oh, God forbid you describe the way a line is forming at a Great American Ballpark. That's all I'm saying. Not only was it long, but it was deep and wide. People excited.
I mean, what do you want me to do with that? Like, there's no other interpretation.
Oh, my God.
That was about the Ellie De La Cruz bobblehead day, is what that was, by the way.
Oh, my
You
God.
left me speechless. That's certainly what you did there.
We were talking about college basketball a little bit because I guess we do that 365 now with transfer portals open all year long, right? That's what we do. We found out earlier this week that Purdue is retaining their All-American point guard and the Big Ten Player of the Year, Braden Smith, and now Indiana has landed a top 10 power forward in the transfer portal, and a kid by the name of Lamar Wilkerson, who averaged better than 20 points a game.
Shooting guard, right?
Yeah, 6'4".
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, I was talking about he joins Reed Bailey, who is one of the top 10 power forwards. Thank you, Kevin, for clarifying that. But so far, so good for Indiana? Just on paper? Kevin, does it feel like getting some headway there?
You know, it's funny. You waited till the end to say on paper. It's almost like I feel this way about training camp, James. Before we ever talk about anything that happens at a training camp practice, before we ever talk about anything that happens in college basketball in particular, like retooling your roster, we should have Mark should have a rejoinder that doesn't sound like the Ellie De La Cruz line description, but rather sounds like on paper, this is what it means. Or at a training camp practice, this is what was observed.
Nah.
It's just the caveat of all right, can we all get on the same page here? This is a transfer portal signing on April 15th.
I don't want the caveat. I want hope.
Because,
I want excitement.
Could we play back the Miles Rice audio from last year or the
Don't do
Kaden
that to me.
Carlisle audio from last year? It's
Don't do
just
that to me.
And again, I feel that way about training camp practices. It's like, well, Anthony Richardson was 8 of 10 today, but it's also August 8th. So I guess with that.
Oh no, I'm not. I am vehemently against this. I want to be hyperbolic for as long as possible. That's what makes sports great. I mean, I am seriously. It's changed now because I'm in media. I don't have like the diehard team fandom, but I promise you, as a young Bulls fan with those Derrick Rose teams that, looking back, had no chance of ever getting out of the East Conference Finals because they had Keith Bogans at shooting guard and he couldn't score.
Shout out Keith Bogans.
Shout out to Keith Bogans. But I tell you what, I would talk myself every game, every round. Like, you know what? I think we can do it. I think this is the year. So I shout out to people who think like that. We like to be optimistic sometimes, KB.
Well, that is one way to look at it. Lamar Wilkerson is indeed, if you want to look at Lamar Wilkerson, and obviously we need to give him the credit that he has earned at this point, flamethrower. I mean, the three-point shooting numbers are eye-popping. And to be fair, Miles Rice, Kaden Carlisle, past Indiana teams, they have not had a shooter with this sort of resume. Shot at 45% last year at Sam Houston State, and it's not like he was shooting a small amount of threes. He had 109 threes made last season. That is damn impressive percentage in volume. And I'm always curious when you see guys like this, all right, what do they do against better competition? Well, inside of Assembly Hall last year, he had 18 against Indiana. Baylor last year, tournament team, he had 19. So, those numbers do catch my eye a little bit. I thought his quote about picking Indiana over Kentucky was certainly an indictment of where Indiana is at as a program right now. He basically said, I didn't want to go to Kentucky to just be another guy. And he's not wrong. Kentucky,
IU, I can get property. I can get everything.
IU is more desperate, frankly, right now for his services. And also, he's probably going to play more of a lead guard role. So, if you want to make the mountaintop analogy, Kentucky's a lot closer to, reaching the top of Everest than Indiana is. Indiana's probably at the bottom of it. So that was something that definitely stood out to me as well.
James, if you want hope and hyperbole, I got a story for you. That one of the stories I read, and I'm quoting here, in addition to his scoring totals, Wilkerson averaged 2.1 assists, 1.1 steals, and 0.3 blocks per game. He could fill up the stat sheet on any given night. He did so in a win at Western Kentucky in mid-February, where he nearly had a triple-double, 14 points, 10 boards, 7 assists. It was his only double-double of the season, though he's certainly capable of producing more. There's hope and hyperbole for you.
I need it. I'm not listening to KB dunk on my hope, okay? This is the guy who's watching the Notre Dame spring game on his phone, being hopeful, I would assume.
Didn't Notre Dame just play in the national championship?
This is true. But nevertheless, did they win it?
They still got there.
Okay.
There are a lot of other teams in college football that I think would have
let
rather
us have
gotten there.
something, KB. Not everybody's getting to the national championship every year.
I would say this for every transfer portal player at any college. I think what makes it so difficult, it's like on paper, how did Indiana screw up Miles Rice, Kanan Carlisle,
No, seriously,
Umar Ball?
fair.
Seriously. That's what
That's
I
fair.
think makes it so difficult is you see some of these portal rankings and you're like, wait, how? Now, again, to offer more hope to Indiana fans, what is different about this year's class? Again, there's legit shooting. Tucker DeVries, Lamar Wilkerson, those resumes were not showing up in Bloomington in years past. So I think the general idea of we need to add more shooting, and even Reed Bailey is a guy that stretched the floor a little bit at Davidson. That is different. It's just anytime you talk about this stuff in April, it's like, damn, as much as you feel good about it on paper, it's like you still got to put it all together. And the weird thing is, Wilkerson, it's one and done, 6-year college basketball. So then you're back to, kind of square one next year of, okay,
snatching hope out of me.
What do you look like from a roster building standpoint?
To not be too much of a ridiculous person on the airwaves this morning, I tend to agree. I do wonder, too, not necessarily with Wilkerson, but with just the roster in general, will we see players get better? And that's the thing that I think Mike Woodson really had to answer for towards the end was like, when you get these guys, they're not getting better under your tutelage. And that was a bit frustrating, I think, for IU fans. It's like, well, we get all this hype. We hear these guys are so good in high school from their previous school, and they get here, and we're not seeing that pay off. And so maybe that'll be different this time around with Darren DeVries. So, we'll see. But like you said, it's a long way away, but I'm going to be more optimistic than not in April.
All right, coming to you live from the DriveHubler.com studios. It's the Fan Morning Show, 95-107.5 The Fan. Nate Atkins stops by to talk Colts next.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Still here rocking out alongside Mark Dykton on the ones and twos, Jeff Rickard and Kevin Bowen, as I like to call him KB. I'm James Boyd, of course, on the Fan Morning Show. And I believe we have Nate Atkins from Indy Star on the line. And before we get to Colts, I'm going to start with pettiness because that's how I am, you all. So, Nate,
I was wondering where you were going when you asked about the Cavs during the break. I knew full well where you were going.
So, Nate, I just want to know how many games will the Pacers beat the Cavs in round 2 to advance to the conference finals?
Oh, man, you already put them in round 2, huh?
Yeah,
okay,
I got to start with,
tonight.
Something.
How about we cross that bridge when they get there? I got to see them actually get there. I'm not convinced the Pacers are going to be in round 2, but if they're good enough to get to round 2, then I guess it'll be a fun series and maybe it could go 5 games.
Oh, he's giving me a diplomatic answer.
Nate, I'm seeing 1 o'clock here coming up a week from Saturday when we're in the draft room. Your Cavs have got a game 3. Are you going to go kind of dual monitor? Maybe tell Joel Erickson to take all the round 4 and round 5 and round 6 picks, and you'll recap all the other ones?
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a painful experience, except probably a little lower stress. Last year it was Cavs Magic during that exact time, and for those in the draft room, they knew I was not in the best spot. So
man, this dude was
quite as painful,
groaning and shaking, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? These picks can't be this bad. I was thinking, my goodness, am I analyzing the wrong picks here? Are the Colts picking just the worst players imaginable? It was Nate going through it as most fans would. But on a more serious note, my friend, we've had debates about this. I know you've talked about this, as well. But where are you leaning if it comes to tight end? If both tight ends are available when it comes to Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland, which one do you feel is better for the Colts?
Oh, I'm firmly in the Tyler Warren camp on that discussion. I just think it makes a lot of sense as to why he's been the guy that's been mocked to them the most. Colston Loveland has kind of risen up a little bit later. Maybe that's just because he was kind of hurt at the end of last season. Tyler Warren was popping off for a team in the playoffs, but the more you look into him, I just think stylistically, you could make an argument that they're similar, talent levels if you add up all their different skills, but the style and the fit for this team, I think, is a good step more in Tyler Warren's direction. They both, of course, would help. I mean, they both step in for a team that didn't have a tight end that broke even 200 yards last year and would instantly be their number 1 tight end, and that's why they're both kind of linked that way. Is the Colts are a team that needs the number 1 tight end. Normally, you don't go into a draft looking for that specifically, and that's why they're first-round prospects. But to me, stylistically, they need one that's going to be as much of an asset in the run game as the pass game, because the run game's huge to what they want to do with Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson. The tight end's a huge part of that when they want to run zone and get those tight ends up to the second level, as well as sealing the edge. And it's also because they have 3 800-yard wide receivers already, and so there's room certainly for a tight end to get more than 200 yards. There's targets in the middle of the field. There's conversions they need to stay on the field on third down. So there's absolutely a role for that tight end, but I think it needs to be a dual role, ideally, where they can be a real asset in the run game and in the pass game, and also just the spacing of where that player's going to line up. Tyler Warren, I mean, you could put him in a million different spots, but if you want to use him more as a traditional inline blocking tight end, or inline tight end that does a good amount of head-up blocking on defensive ends, he can do that. Colston Loveland can do some of that, but I think he's more ideally a guy you split out in a flex role a good amount of time, kind of way that you would use like a Kylan Granson. And I just think that type of role gets duplicative in the passing game here with Josh Downs, in the fact that they want to live in 11 personnel so much because they have Josh Downs as a receiver who's also a pretty adequate blocker in his own way. So if you add Tyler Warren in and they live in 11 personnel, but that's the tight end, that's the one tight end you have on the field, I think it makes them incredibly dangerous as a team that can pass, a team that can throw, a team that can run the RPO, a team that could run zone read at you and get free blocks. I think Tyler Warren could take this offense, at least the run game part of it, to a level that I don't think Colston Loveland could. So that's why they're both really, really good, and you'd imagine one of them is going to be there at 14. But if the conversation is, hey, you need to trade up a little bit to get Warren or sit there to get Colson Loveland. I think I'm in the camp that you just go ahead and make the trade up.
It's the voice of Nate Atkins from the Indianapolis Star. His fandom includes Ohio State as well. If you need any reasons to, dislike him anymore, I'm obviously joking on that end. I come from a
You're
national.
getting hammered by these guys today, Nate.
Come from a national side of it of bitterness.
I heard
here.
that. I heard that little bit of banter about Notre Dame making the national title game, and you're right. It's not everyone makes it there. Some teams win it when they do get there.
Gosh.
Boom.
I could feel the knife already in there. I was wondering when he was going to twist it, though. Gosh, Mark,
You just put Kevin in the fetal position.
Mark, you're gonna have to dump me here. Unbleeping believable from Nate Atkins from the Indianapolis Star. I'll get over it eventually. About as much as I've gotten over the national title game. Clearly, Nate, I do a positional mock draft each year. So basically, I try to kind of rank the Colts' needs, assess that to the draft picks. Biggest need goes in round 1, second biggest need round 2, et cetera, et cetera. I went through the 7 picks. I didn't have wide receiver or cornerback. Is that dumb of me?
No, I think that's pretty fair. I mean, there's a world where I think you could maybe argue to put corner on there almost.
Yeah, corner
more
was
as
the
a
one I
sort
was
of-
torn on a little bit more than wide out.
Yeah. It just kind of depends on what you want to do with Juju Brents. I mean, at this point, we don't know really anything about him. We don't even know how good of a player he's going to be because he hasn't played enough. And so when you get, teams need a number 3 corner all the time. And so if you don't fully believe in him, then you could argue that. I mean, there is a world where they could upgrade on Jalen Jones. He's solid, but there's some guys in the first or second round you can make that argument for. But yeah, I don't think it's a high need at all now that you have Travarius Ward and another Pro Bowl player in Kenny Moore, and then wide receiver is that one is just way too loaded when you get down to even a guy like Ashton Doolin. I think is just depth on the outside is very, very strong. The only thing there is you may like a guy that you could trust as a backup slot receiver, but Josh Downs has barely missed any time, and and then we barely even scratched the surface with A.D. Mitchell, who, I mean, it wasn't a good rookie year for him, but we know there's tons of talent there, and the light bulb can come on in the second year the way it sort of did for Alec Pierce. And it just feels like there's more to unlock with those wide receivers if they can get any kind of stability at quarterback and any kind of accuracy in the middle of the field and all of that. So wide receiver to me is I don't know that there's a position that they are stronger at than wide receiver going into this draft. So corner is one that I think there's a world where you could upgrade if you just want to be the make it even a bigger strength where it's more of like a maybe a moderate strength right now. But yeah, those two positions you compare to just a couple years ago have come a long way.
Nate Atkins, Indy Star, joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline. How much do they invest in the defensive line? We've talked about the fact that you don't have a lot of guys under contract past the end of this year, and guys are starting to get older as well. How much attention do they pay to that over these 7 rounds?
Yeah, I think that's one of those where they certainly, when they're measuring up their other needs, the other ones are certainly more immediate. They need certain starters right now at tight end and linebacker and guard. So it's one of those that they could put off to next year, and then, but if they do that, it just becomes a real immediate need because, like you said, it's only Latu Latu on the edge is the only guy who is under contract after this season, and we know that Chris Ballard he loves to stockpile the defensive line. Like we knew last year that edge was a position that he might look at, and then he comes out and he's the first. They're the first team to draft any defensive player, and it's Latu Latu. When they at that time Samson Ebukam had not torn his Achilles yet, they were pretty loaded, at least pretty strong at that point, coming off kind of their local franchise record for sacks, and so they're always going to go to that. So that's been a position it's hard to figure out exactly where to fit it in. Like I did a 7-round mock draft today and ended up drafting them an edge rusher in the 6th, and that just did not feel ideal or feel like something that they will end up doing, though you could justify it just if you want to attack these more immediate needs and they feel like they need to win for this year versus next year. But, it just depends because I think they do have 2 starters on the edge, and Latu and Kwity Paye, they know what they have, and DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart, doesn't feel nearly as deep as even a year ago when they had just signed Raekwon Davis. Samson Ebukam, like I mentioned, was still healthy. So they're gonna add to that somewhere in the draft. That's been the one that's hard to figure out how high they would go on it. I think part of it is that the defensive ends this year are not, I don't think, as impactful as last year, high up in the draft when you had Latu and Dallas Turner and guys like that. So, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if they answer one of these needs, like a tight end in the first pick, that they go there on day 2. Even they just push one of these other positions down the board a little bit, because that's just how Chris Ballard operates. And they want to look toward next year, and they don't want to probably be in a spot where they absolutely have to go there in the first round next year. But then again, they do that sometimes because that's kind of the spot they're in with tight end this year, where they put that off long enough. Now it feels like they just have to go there at least by round 2. So I can see that happening with defensive end, but it's Chris Ballard's favorite position, the defensive line. So I expect, like most years, he'll end up going there a little bit earlier than most of us are going to expect.
Thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it. They can go check out your latest 7-round mock draft at the Indy Star. We appreciate your time, Nate.
All right. Thanks for having me.
I won't forget that, Nate.
Maybe I should say I appreciate having Nate on. You
I
guys
was going to say.
Harsh on him today.
Watch your pronouns there.
I mean, I must say, I will enjoy seeing him suffer through it, because what I love about Nate is, obviously the analysis and the insight, but as a fan, he truly is still a fan of all his teams. I watched the game with him one year, and we did it at his house, and it was a good thing we did it at his house, because we could not watch that in public at all. He's a true fan, and I got to respect that. We all need to have a little outlet, as media members, to be fans. So I respect it. And KB, when you see him, you could just punch him.
Well, I do respect his fandom, frankly. His passion, I should say. Maybe not the specific fandom, but yes, under my breath, I did offer him
fight. That's what I'm be screaming in the Colts media room before the draft starts. Like, all right, let's get our bets in.
Congrats on Ohio State. There is a point when we get to Saturday of the draft, James, like it's 3 o'clock, and I'm like, I feel like all of us just hate each other in this room. It's like our 14 of us together in there, and it's just kind of like, oh boy, are we really doing this again? Did Chris Ballard just trade back and add 3 more day 3 picks?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I would be miserable if I didn't like you all as much as I do. Because seriously, there's other beats, and you know this full well, KB, and you'll see it play out in real time at the combine, the owners' meetings, where it's kind of contentious, and we're cutting people off with their questions and being rude. And so I do think we have a more friendly beat. But, yeah, by day 3, I'm like, I don't talk to myself this much. And it's pretty crazy as though we were going to be locked in that room.
Better chance they draft a wideout or a kicker? And is that the most ridiculous question you've ever heard?
Ooh, that's
if we're
going to
go
question.
there, I'd probably say kicker at this point. I think their wide receiver room is pretty good.
Can you imagine saying that? Like,
that's crazy.
Can you imagine, Mark's played so much Chris Ballard, wide receiver, Kevin Bowen audio over the years, and here I am legitimately asking a question. Better chance they draft a kicker or a wideout?
I could see a 6th or 7th round kicker.
I'm going to say, I'm going to probably lean with Jeff towards kicker. I mean, if you take a receiver, I'm just asking where he's going to fit in. Like, what does he have an ideal role to get on the roster?
Yeah, when you start naming wideouts, we know the big 4.
Yeah.
Pittman, Pierce, Downs, Mitchell. And then after that, Doolin. You still have Anthony Gould on the roster.
Exactly.
I mean, that is 6. And Gould, again, is kind of that return guy. It's just, it's crazy. And we brought this up last week when the Matt Gay cut happened. I think what makes it truly difficult is just because you draft a kicker doesn't mean you've cured that position. I said the stat to you guys. Matt Gay is one of 12 kickers drafted in the NFL. Matt Gay was a 5th-round draft pick in 2019, one of 12 kickers drafted since that 2019 draft. And he has the 2nd highest field goal percentage of any of the 12. And he just got cut. So think about that. That theoretically means 10 other dudes have struggled more than he has in his NFL career. But having said that, if you told me the 200 and whatever pick the Colts have in round 7, the 247th pick would lead you to a kicker that could kick for you for the next 10 years, you wouldn't sign up for that?
If you knew a kicker was going to be with you for the next 10 years.
Because that's the hardest part about it.
We got spoiled by one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time, when Adam Vinatieri was here.
Well, and again, look at Adam Vinatieri and how he showed up in the NFL. He played over in Europe. I mean, look at how Jake Bates kicked last year for the Lions. He was XFL team? Justin Tucker was undrafted. A lot of these guys, look at the kid from Dallas. Wasn't he a Notre Dame soccer player? Brandon Aubrey? And now look at how he has turned into an NFL kicker. That's what makes it really, really challenging. Really, really difficult here.
Y'all have been kicking the out of me for years.
It's your fault, Kevin.
When you mentioned that, he visibly straightened up and immediately went to his computer.
I've got a lot of audio.
I was going to say, Mark and audio. Jeff.
That's what he lives for. I'm learning again.
Be careful. I think you learned in a very harsh manner.
It's been a couple of years with him before, and here we are again.
Some would say stick around for like 12 minutes from now. There might be more audio coming.
James, this one from Brandon here. What position would be the biggest surprise at 14 that's also realistic? He says, I think cornerback, since they went all in this offseason and Ballard doubles down on needs.
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good bet from Brandon. I'm trying to think of other positions. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they go maybe D-line. Wouldn't be surprised by O-line. Wouldn't be surprised by linebacker.
What if they drafted Ashton Genty was there at 14?
I would tell them that they made a grave mistake. Seriously, like if they did that, I would rip them for that. You have Jonathan Taylor. You don't need Ashton Genty. So yeah, I would lean towards cornerback. If they, for numbers and clicks and my purposes, it'd be great theater and great TV. But
run the wishbone with Taylor, Genty, and Richardson.
Just never throw again.
Let's say they drafted Genty and Chris Ballard comes to the post-draft conference and he said, we wanted our version of Sonic and Knuckles like they have in Detroit. Would that sway you at all, or would you just like that's a horrible decision?
I would say that before they took Jahmyr Gibbs that early in Detroit, they had a lot of the non-sexy positions thoroughly vetted. Like, their offensive line is crazy.
Yeah.
What if they traded Taylor then for the 30th
all
overall pick?
All right.
Well, this is what we do.
You're trying to, have me fall out here, KB.
Because a lot of crazy NFL draft nerds would say Taylor's approaching the number. He's approaching the number where guys fall off a cliff.
And he's had some injuries.
Like if you look at the carries at Wisconsin, if you look at what the workload he's had here in the NFL. Now, again, I think Taylor strikes me as a dude that can defy a little bit of those odds. But there are people, and we saw it very harshly on Hard Knocks last year, that say, hey, when running backs get to age whatever, when they get to carry number whatever, they start to really, really fall off.
Yeah, I would say no because
look at his
contract. He's got 2 years left on the deal, and he's got guaranteed money in this year, and the out is next year with no guaranteed money left as far as his salary goes. And so if you're going to make a move, you would do it next year, not this year. And again, you paid him to ideally have him be the guy that can help you break through, get to the playoffs, go on a run. And I know a lot of that hinges on the quarterback, but I'm not moving JT, especially after the season he just had. I get it. He dropped the ball in Denver. It was a terrible mistake, worst mistake of his career. But he still had a pretty remarkable season and was part of that running back resurgence.
Yeah, Jim says this, you don't ever draft a kicker. You have examples of Adam Vinatieri and Justin Tucker that you just made your own case. I get that. But if I said to you, your 7th round kicker would become a 10-year answer at that position, you wouldn't draft him.
You just don't know if that's going to be the case, though.
Which makes it so difficult.
Yeah.
But think about that. You don't have to worry about let's name the Colts 7th round draft picks in the last 10 years.
Will Fries?
Outside of Zaire Franklin and Will Fries, I don't think people can name anybody. So it's like, if that can be
Titus Leo
kicker.
But I'll also point out the fact that for the longest time, the Colts were better than anybody else at having a free agent, an undrafted free agent join their roster, too.
Right. And again, I think that's probably the most likely competition for Spencer Schrader.
I wouldn't mind it, though. If there is, again, if you feel comfortable with the medical records, with Will Johnson, he's there, and you take him.
Yeah, corner, to get back to that question, corner's the one that, again, on paper, Jalen Jones, Travarius Ward, Kenny Moore.
Hold on to that. I want to ask you about that. I can kind of see that. We'll talk more about that coming up in a second. In the meantime, let's quickly check it down.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Butler Bulldogs Basketball. 2025-26 season tickets are on sale now. Registration for iconic Hinkle Fieldhouse premium seats runs through May 31st. Don't miss Hinkle Magic. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
The Indiana Pacers have a full schedule of their first-round series against the Milwaukee Bucks out and about. We knew about the 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon game. They'll play again on Tuesday. and Friday, and then a late game on Sunday, Kevin Bowen. 9:30 tip for Game 4.
Yeah, a week from Sunday, just to make sure
A week from
everyone
Sunday, yes. As
is
they
on
go
the same
through
page.
They go through the schedule. Saturday.
Yeah, so again, Saturday at 1 o'clock. Then they will play coming up Tuesday for Game 2. That is inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. That is 7 o'clock. And then a week from Friday up in Milwaukee. That is Game 3. And a week from Sunday, that is the 27th, a 9:30 tip Game 4 on the road. So your home games for people that care, Saturday at 1, Tuesday at 7. And then Game 5, if necessary, would be the 29th. That is also a Tuesday.
All right. Last night, play-in games. The Atlanta Hawks stumbled against the Orlando Magic, 120-95. Trae Young ejected in a curious manner last night.
Yeah, I don't know what he was so mad about. His team was playing awful. I'm sure he felt like some calls didn't go his way. But when you lose by that margin, it is not the ref's fault. Sorry.
Golden State defeated the Memphis Grizzlies to secure the 7th spot in the West, 121-116 the final. Playoff Jimmy Butler, 38. Steph Curry, 37. And the Grizzlies had a 5-second violation with a chance late in the game.
Is that worse than Houston? Because, not getting the ball in as an NBA team, I was like, everyone should just be relegated out of the league, but I get that they have another chance to get into the playoffs.
2 play-in games tonight, right here on The Fan. Beginning at 7 o'clock, our coverage between the Heat and the Bulls in the Eastern Conference. Dallas Mavericks, Sacramento Kings in the West follows that when you hear both games right here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. And KB, Indiana lands one of the best shooters in the NCAA transfer portal overnight.
Flamethrower, Lamar Wilkerson, impressive what he did at Sam Houston State last season, not only in percentage, but volume. They beat out Kentucky, which I know probably makes Indiana fans extra happy. So starting to put some pieces together, and your optimism down in Bloomington would lie with why is this different than any other portal class? Well, these guys can actually shoot, whereas I would say the guys in the recent portal classes did not have that as a strength. So, again, it's on paper, but reasons for optimism there.
Major League Baseball, Cubs beat the Padres 2-1 in 10 innings last night, and the Reds won their 4th in a row late against the Seattle Mariners. 8-4 was the final score in that one. Later on tonight, Toledo Mud Hens. That's this afternoon. I keep saying tonight, but it's this morning, actually, at 11:05. Where's the buzzer, Mark? Come on. All right. Toledo Mud Hens.
You've worn it out already, so I don't know if I get
11:05.
any more life in it.
No, I gave you plenty of fodder earlier, more than anything. Indianapolis Indians today hosting the Mud Hens at 11:05 over at Victory Field. Meanwhile, at Carroll Stadium tonight, it'll be the Indy 11 taking on Miami FC. We've got tickets to that coming up next, Mark, at 239-1070. So you want to go out there and have a good night out there? That's an option for you.
It's
as
our
well.
last 4 packs. If you can go tonight, then call in.
All right, 239-1070, the number to call. It's coming your way next, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
This is the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, and Jeff.
Not only was it long, but it was deep and wide. People excited. I don't get this as much anymore. In fact, I don't get it at all anymore. I kind of miss it.
You've ever looked down and thought, wow, this looks heinous?
I'm proud that you grabbed a banana on the way out, KB.
Can I just say I'm really proud of both you guys? Like, the official snack food of the morning show may be the banana.
This sounds weird. You want to touch it?
I'm ready for a big one.
I don't know how to make sausage. I don't know what goes into sausage.
Never a bad day when you start a little bush right there.
There's a very low percentage of this that is smiles and glory holes.
Not a single one of those had anything to do with the other one.
I mean, I got to give it to Mark. That's hilarious. I will say I was included once or twice, I believe.
Oh, you haven't been here long enough
I'm
yet.
sure that'll increase over time, but that was hilarious. I mean, what I love about the show is you got to be able to laugh at yourself, and I'm certainly going to have those moments, but man.
I left a lot on the cutting room floor.
I know. We got to keep it FCC safe, right? So that's pretty funny. Coming back here in the DriveHulu.com studio, I, of course, am James Boyd, joined by...
Whenever Mark forgets, to book a guest or forget audio, just know he has got those, though. No one does those better.
He's got them in the chamber right there.
Exactly. So appreciate you all listening. Of course, I'm James, joined by Jeff, Mark on the ones and twos, ever so lovingly right there, and KB. And KB, I want to throw this your way as we get out of the break. Pacers related. Miles Turner has seen like every variation of this team over the last 10 years. How much do you think his leadership matters, or just his voice matters, when it comes to moments like these? Because I feel like he can kind of quantify for the entire team how much you maybe shouldn't waste an opportunity or take it for granted, because he's been through every version of it. The success, the lows, missing the playoffs, the injuries, and now he's back here again.
Yeah, I think he offers great just franchise sort of perspective on it all. I think the Siakam acquisition, I hate to say it neuters Turner's voice, but I think I go back to what Siakam said at the end of last year's postseason, James, and you've brought this up a couple times today, ironically. You've said the Pacers can't be the Hawks from a few years ago, where you get to the conference finals and then we largely never hear from you again. That's what has happened to Atlanta since then. So, maybe if Siakam wasn't here, you would have a little bit more of Turner having that. I mean, I still think he's got a very important voice, and I don't want to undermine it, but I just think Pascal's playoff history, and not only him as a player, probably helps in that area. I'm curious, too, does Turner get the direct Giannis assignment at all?
That's a great one.
And not Siakam.
I think it'll have to be in spots. He doesn't have the lateral quickness to keep up with him.
But hear me out. Okay, so that means Turner guards Lopez. You want Turner away from the rim? Because Lopez he'll just run around that three-point arc. You know how Lopez can be. I mean, he will gun. So that aspect of, I think it'll be Siakam getting the first look at Giannis. But how the Pacers choose, if I'm not mistaken, I think there were even times last year during the postseason, I don't know what the Milwaukee lineup would have had to have been, but they put Nesmith maybe on Lopez, and then put Turner on again, I don't know who would have been in the game, who was a non-shooter for the Bucks, but pretty much just let Turner try to camp out as much in the paint as you can.
Yeah, I mean, to get back to the question, KB, I guess the thing I wanted to kind of just drive home is Siakam can give you the overall perspective, and Jeff, feel free to chime in as well. He can give you that overall playoff perspective of what it means to win big, win it all, obviously, but I feel like Miles can kind of give you that perspective of why it matters so much here. And why it feels different here, because he's seen
it's
every
good
version.
It's good 30 for 30 Indiana Pacer.
Yeah,
it's probably a good reminder to the team. I don't know. I almost view that as more important for us than it is
that's
necessarily
a good way to kind of spin it. Yeah, I can agree with that.
And I don't know. Maybe it does resonate. Maybe Benedict Matherin's damn, okay, dude, you are making a good point here. This franchise was at a lower point than it has been. Because for a lot of these guys, they haven't been here when it's been low.
Exactly. It kind of shifted when Matherin arrived.
Right.
Whereas, again, Miles, I feel like he's posted a picture, again, a couple weeks ago where he's shaking hands with Kobe, after a game. And we know how long ago it's been that he's now been out of the league and obviously has since passed. But I always feel a way just watching Miles in playoff games here because we've seen him kind of grow up before our eyes. I think he came here at 19. He's my age now or around the same age. So I'm excited to see how he embraces another playoff run, just knowing that he's got to play with Roy Hibbert at one point, which seems like a lifetime ago, and now it's the Tyrese Halliburton version of this. So how you feeling about the game, Jeff?
I want to go at Kevin's point real quick about maybe this discussion's more for us, because I like a little bit of everything with the Pacers right now. Obviously, just the incredible wealth of experience that Rick Carlisle brings as a head coach to start with.
Yeah, no
right?
question.
Pascal Siakam with a championship pedigree there. Miles Turner, who's been on this team and seen so many iterations of it over the years. And now your best player, my question, I guess, back to both you guys is, as he grows in stature in the league, as he grows, we've seen this year and the last year, Tyrese Halliburton, what does his voice mean as we move forward? Because he's the clear guy on this team.
I think one of the coolest things about Tyrese is his voice is authentic. He doesn't give you a lot of coach speak answers. You don't get a lot of cliches out of him. So I think his authenticity kind of resonates not only with the fan base, but with the guys in the room. Because Tyrese is going to give you his heart on the court, but also off of it. I think he can kind of, be vulnerable when he's going through the struggles, as well as being, honest about the highs as well. Like, this is really cool what we're doing. And so I think he has a nice balance of keeping perspective, but also having that joy in the moment. And I'll even go back to, All-Star Weekend last year. I remember Steve Kerr compared Tyrese Halliburton's approach to the game to Steph Curry's, meaning like he approaches it with a healthy level of seriousness, but also this contagious joy. And I think if we see a skipping Tyrese Halliburton in the first round, things are going pretty well for the team.
Kevin, let me ask you this question, too, while we're having this discussion. I know he's a reserve, but he's been here for a minute now, too. What kind of a voice does T.J. McConnell have on that team?
I mean, I think they're all voices. I don't know. I think at times maybe we kind of blow up or blow out of proportion some of these guys and their voices. I think they're all important pieces. I think in general, cohesion is key. And then that ball will be tipped on Saturday, and we'll see how it all unfolds from there. I assume McConnell will still have that consistent role in the rotation. I know we talked a lot about that with Tony East a little bit ago. Again, I'd probably push back on Tony saying that Mathurin will be scaled back a little. Like, to me, Nembhard is an interesting one for this series because it has been a quiet storyline, but Andrew Nembhard has not been a highly efficient dude here lately. Now, he does a lot of other things for you. He guards. He can be a secondary ball handler. I think the secondary ball handler in the playoffs matters. James, you brought it up earlier. Let's go back to Game 1's last 2 years the last season with Tyrese Halliburton. 6 points and 9 points in Game 1s against Milwaukee and New York.
Yeah.
You can't have that. But if Milwaukee chooses, hey, that's the head of the snake, we're going to do everything we can to take the ball out of Halliburton's hands, that means Nembhard now facilitates a whole lot more. But, again, I don't see the Nembhard defensive assignment that obvious in this series. It's not Jalen Brunson. It's not Damian Lillard like you had last year. It's not even like Drew Holiday in that Boston series. So, do you want McConnell still in a consistent role? Because you could play the game of like Nembhard plays more of the, Halliburton plays like 41 minutes a night, and then Nembhard just runs the show for 3 or 4 minutes with the second unit. I don't think Rick will do that. But again, that could be a wrinkle that might pop up in this series.
I think the strength for TJ getting and keeping his minutes is he's so consistent, James. He just is who he is every night.
It just changes pace.
Yeah, I'm always wondering, like, okay, how is he effective? But then he does all the things that matter in these types of games. Like, you'll see him get some 50-50 balls. You'll see him create extra possessions with forcing some turnovers. And then he'll hit that mid-range jumper that I'm always like, man, is that a good shot? Yes, it is, because that guy took it. So I know he's another one who kind of plays with that chip on his shoulder, has embraced Indiana, and gives you that feel that you can go out there and do anything, because he does have that indomitable spirit, indomitable will.
It's going to be fun to watch. And one of the things I still point out again, and I've watched a lot of campaigns and a lot of teams over the years and a lot of playoffs, I like the way this team genuinely cares about each other, because that does translate onto the court sometimes in terms of being unselfish, making sure you hit the guy at the right spot at the right time. They genuinely cheer for each other, and I love that about this team.
Yeah, I think it's hard, honestly, to not enjoy each other's company when you're winning. And maybe, that 10-15 start, you're looking around and you're like, man, what the heck is going on here? But since then, they played really great basketball, have won at a very high level. And so if you're the one guy in the group who's not celebrating somebody else's success, you're probably going to be the odd man out. And so I think it also speaks to the maturity. I think Jarris has been very mature throughout this season with his fluctuating minutes, as KB pointed out recently on the show. And then on top of that, Benedict Mathurin working his way back into the lineup after the injury. Aaron Nesmith, he missed a ton of time this year. Him playing the best basketball of his career. So I think a lot of these guys are playing for reasons beyond just themselves, and that certainly helps you. But at the same time, it's not enough. You got to go out there and execute against one of the best players in the world, and honestly, one of the best players ever when it comes to Giannis.
Can I give a shout-out to one of my favorite Notre Dame athletes of all time?
Could we stop you? I mean, that's not possible, is it?
Well, Mark could definitely stop me with simply turning off my mic. Did you guys see my boy Pat Connaughton had 43 for the Bucks in their last game of the season?
Yeah. And he hadn't played in a while either.
No,
like
he's like
minutes.
out of their rotation.
Yeah,
Milwaukee took the approach of the Pacers approach. You know, they played a lot of their
guys on the roster.
And Pat Connaughton had 43 points in an overtime win over the Pistons in Game 82.
And wasn't he like a baseball guy?
Baseball. He has had a hell of an NBA career. 10 years now in the NBA. And yeah, he was thought to be more of a baseball player coming out of Notre Dame. Was a key piece on Notre Dame making the Elite Eight 2 years in a row there in South Bend. But yeah, he was, I want to say at one point was a 5th-round pick of the Orioles. How about that? He could play in the NBA until the age of like 34, 33 or something, and then go try
Switch
and
over.
pitch in the major leagues for 3 years.
Been a minute, though.
It has. Can you imagine if you pulled that off?
That would be something.
I do want to point out, for those who can't see on the Rob Hubler internet feed, you are wearing the Fighting Irish hoodie today.
Of course.
Get that going on.
Yeah,
So.
I probably wear it once a week. Yeah, here to our YouTube audience out here. Yeah, of course.
We've got the Jiffy Lube Superstar
So
of the Day
comfy.
coming up in just a moment here. Also, get you up to date on things you might be able to do tonight if you're a sports fan and have some time. It'll come your way next on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Time for your Jiffy Lube stat of the day. Scotty Johnston on top of it as always. He's been busy this morning now that we have playoff schedules out and NFL drafts coming up, and he has been a busy, busy boy, but he had time for us today. The Jiffy Lube stat of the day from Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985. Men, the Orlando Magic beat the Atlanta Hawks last night to claim the 7th seed in the NBA's Eastern Conference playoffs. Their reward? A first-round series with the defending NBA champion Boston Celtics. Since Joe Mazzulla took over as Boston's head coach at the start of the 22-23 season, Orlando leads the regular season series 6-4. Only the Oklahoma City Thunder have a better winning percentage against the Celtics during that time, going 4-2. The Magic own top-scoring defense in the NBA this season, though, allowing 105.5 points per game. Boston is second at 107.2 points per game. This will be just the 5th playoff series over the last 30 seasons, pitting the top 2 teams in scoring defense. In the previous 4 series, when it's all defense, the number 1 defensive team beat the number 2 team all 4 times. How about that? Eastern Conference semis, Celtics over the Raptors. Eastern Conference finals, Celtics over the Pistons. NBA Finals in 2005, Spurs over the Pistons, and in 2003, the Eastern Conference Finals, the Nets over the Pistons. So defense still wins games and championships.
It matters. It matters. And we talked about the Pacers and their deficiencies going into the playoffs. Rebounding and defense will be huge for them, particularly just making sure the Bucks don't get extra shots for their plethora of shooters.
Kevin has a special treat for us today, which I'm looking forward to. I heard a little bit of it.
Mark, cue the nerd sounder. I consumed the Riley Leonard quarterback class with John Gruden the other day.
Dedication.
Thank you, James. That was a much friendlier way to say that. I'm a Notre Dame nerd.
You are a huge nerd.
And I enjoyed it. I do love me some Gruden, and Gruden had a little Peyton Manning tidbit to share in trying to explain to Riley Leonard the need to get the upper hand in communication.
Peyton Manning used to look up, I'm convinced, our starting secondary, their wives' names. He'd be like, Tanisha Smith. Guys are like, hey, man, that's my wife. You got to play the game with these guys because they're professionally stealing your signals.
Right.
And stealing your communication. And that's what I want you to do to them.
Can you imagine? You're trying to figure out what's going on. This guy's in motion. They've got this personnel in there, and all of a sudden you hear your wife's name coming out of Peyton Manning's mouth.
Yeah, I was just thinking to myself, Riley Leonard, you might not want to do that because they might kill you before you get a chance to go out there and show what you can do. Peyton's a little different.
He can't back it up as much.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
James,
fantastic
I kind of forgot.
stuff.
We've got Chris Ballard's pre-draft presser tomorrow.
I didn't forget, but we talk so much about kicker. I guess that's one of the questions we can ask him, but it's always
Well, unfortunately, I'm going to be down teaching, but
you can zoom in, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't.
I'll
let the class in.
No,
on your relationship
you know what?
with
I'm
Chris
gonna
Ballard.
FaceTime KB and turn the phone around like, hey, Chris, this guy has a question.
It's a wide
for you.
receiver question.
If you asked brilliant questions, so there's no need for me to remind you of this. But honestly, one question I would have, and some people are like, hey, pre-draft presser, who cares? He's not going to tell you anything. I always enjoyed this press conference, though, because it is really the first time outside of you guys at the owners' meetings that you can talk to him about the free agent moves. So I do view it in that light. You probably get a little bit more on that side of it. I am curious specifically with Matt Gay. Why then? Why April, whenever it was, 12th? Timing-wise. So I don't know. If you could add that to your list of questions. If you could maybe add, did you ask Matt Gay to restructure his contract? That would maybe be another question.
Oh, don't worry. KB, I got you covered,
that
brother.
I would have. So, again, not a lot you're going to get on the draft itself, but that aspect of the Chris Ballard pre-draft presser, I do think he usually offers some answers to.
Here's how I think this will go down. There's going to be, he'll talk for maybe 30 minutes, right? 12 to 15 will be about the quarterback because it's, hey, we're talking to you about the competition, and hell, it's the biggest story of the offseason. And then we'll get into the draft a little bit, and towards the end, I'll probably throw in some kicker questions just because I'm curious. But yeah, the pre-draft press conference usually doesn't include a lot of draft answers or insight because it's so close to the draft.
They usually tell you how many like first-round picks.
First-round grades they have, which is always kind of cool, and you can kind of speculate there. But yeah, this is a good check-in spot because obviously everyone can't make the trip down to Florida for the owners' meetings, wherever it is, every year, and it'll be good to see them again. Impress them.
There's nothing. You want to talk about the first day, though, the NFL draft. You just never know what's going to happen because there's always one team that really wants somebody, and they'll make that crazy draft day trade up, or they'll pick somebody out of left field. You're like, oh, didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, I mean, what was it last year? Like Bo Nix, they traded up to get him, and then there were a bunch of quarterbacks that went a lot earlier than we thought. You never know how desperate a team is until they're on the clock and they got to make a move. So I certainly don't think that this will be a predictable draft. They never are. And again, picking at 14 is like kind of that sweet spot where you don't really know where you're going to fall. Like it's kind of too far to choose certain players or predict that they're still going to be there, and then too high to reach for other players. So we'll see. But I definitely think that trading back is an option depending on who shakes out where.
And if Kevin, we talked about this once last week, but I'll ask you again. If they truly believe that Tyler Warren is their guy, are they willing to go up a couple of spots to make sure that happens?
Yeah, I mean, you think back to last year. I know we saw the Hard Knocks clip where it sounds like they were certainly inquiring about trading up with the Giants, and that would have been a huge trade up. Was that 15-6? Does that sound right?
I have to go back and look.
I think that is a massive trade up. So if they were inclined to do that last year, if you view Warren in...
Yeah, it's a 6, KB.
I mean, that's a big one, James, what that would have cost you. You would have a similar trade up. Again, not necessarily 15-6. 14 to, what did we say earlier? Dane Brugler's mock had, Tyler Warren going 10 to the Bears.
This dude, man, is the worst guy to look at.
You just made him smile again.
He's the worst guy to look at when you're trying to be serious. I feel like Mark would have got me in so much trouble.
I don't even know what I said. What did I say?
Don't worry about it.
He'll play it back for you, and
best you don't.
Yeah.
Mark,
continue.
Mark, how old are you,
coming
Mark?
Soon.
Huh? Wait, who's asking what?
How old are you, Mark?
39.
39. Mark has got the 7th grade humor trapped into.
We all do. There's a reason why they made 4 Jackass movies. And those series has been going strong for 30 years.
Was it as bad as what Jeff said earlier?
No.
Nothing can compare to that. That's a Marconi Award-winning
that broke the fourth
statement.
wall of the show.
So to try it, bring it back full circle here, I believe I was saying that, trading up a couple spots, sure, but again, 2 to tango. And I think that is what is difficult about it. Why were the Giants going to pass up on Malik Neighbors?
Well, I think
clearly they made the right decision there.
To me, some of the big questions are, we've been talking about Ashton Genty, whether or not he goes at 6. A lot of people are saying 6 to Jacksonville. People are talking about the Bears maybe getting him, and now you throw in the Saints that might not even have their perceived starting quarterback for possibly the entire season when it's all said and done, and they're sitting there at 9, I think. James, is that what it is?
Yeah, there's a lot of fluctuation I would anticipate throughout this draft. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But I definitely think that there are some questions to ask Chris Ballard tomorrow. I know I joke about it. Oh, nothing to ask. Oh, I would definitely be asking something because you only talk to him a handful of times on the record per year, and you got to take advantage of it.
Hey, we've got soccer tonight over at Carroll Stadium. It'll be Indy 11 taking on Miami FC. We've given away tickets to that all week long. Hope you have a great time over there. Weather should be okay. Maybe a little chilly, but not too bad. Mark, we've also got another family 4-pack for Saturday's Indy 11 game coming up as well.
Yes, Saturdays. So not tonight, Saturday's game. So if you want to go, 317-239-1070. We'll take it off air as we're about to get out of here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. 239-1070 is the number to call, and we'll just ponder all the things that we can or cannot say. And I say this before. I've said this before in the last time around. Mark is the epitome of what Beavis and Butthead would be if they grew up to be 39 years old. And we're okay with that. Have yourselves a great day. Jake at noon, JMV at 3. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Not only was it long, but it was deep and wide. People excited.